Chapter 2357. Gue Yin crawled up pathetically, his face full of fear. Elder, I don't know what I have done wrong to offend you. He looked aggrieved and confused. The purple flame demonic woman guessed that Gue Yin had left without saying goodbye and angered her elder. But was there a need to be so harsh? Gue Yin had taken the initiative to contribute, so why couldn't he just leave? That's enough, ghost teacher. Don't play the fool in front of me, Suyu said coldly. He had seen with his own eyes how Gue Yin had escaped from the bodies of the two disciples. He guessed that the divine flame demonic woman had only killed half of Gue Yin's body. The other half was hidden in the body of one of the disciples. He had thought that it would be Hunting Shadow, who had already escaped. But Gue Yin had volunteered, so he was secretly on guard. On the surface, he had sent Gue Yin to capture Hunting Shadow, but in reality, he was secretly monitoring him. As expected, after Gue Yin and the purple flame demonic woman captured Hunting Shadow, they immediately found an excuse to leave. He had thought that everyone's attention had been drawn away by Hunting Shadow. Little did he know that Suyu was most wary of him. Gue Yin's eyes turned, and he said with a confused expression, "Elder, I don't understand what you mean." Suyu did not say a word. He merely stared at Gue Yin. The divine flame demonic woman walked over, her face expressionless. "If you think there's something wrong with you, then there's something wrong with you." With a thought, Gue Yin's body suddenly turned red, as if he was about to be burned to ashes from the inside out. Divine flame demonic woman, what grudge do you have against me?" At that moment, a cry of despair erupted from Gue Yin's body. That voice did not belong to Gue Yin, but someone else. Whoosh, black shadows emerged from Ghost Eye's body and condensed into a slightly transparent ghost teacher. His body was weak, and his eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at Suyu. Everyone was shocked. It really was the ghost teacher. The purple flame demonic woman and the others looked at Suyu with respect. None of them had noticed anything amiss. Only Suyu's eyes were sharp, and he had seen through the ghost teacher's disguise. The divine flame demonic woman's eyes were cold. She had been too careless and had almost allowed the ghost teacher to escape. Suyu must be very dissatisfied with her now. Thinking of this, he roared in anger. Curse annihilation of all directions. As soon as he finished speaking, the world turned red. 10 fire dragons flew over from all directions and pierced through Ghost Master. Ghost Master resisted before his death, activating his domain in hopes of resisting for a while. However, in front of a great venerable, heaven-tier elite, was like a moth that was instantly extinguished. The domain collapsed, and the 10 fire dragons pierced through his body, turning him into charcoal. Before he died, Ghost Master roared with unwillingness, "All of you will die a horrible death." His words were filled with evil intentions. Suyu's eyes were calm. He had already heard too many curses. Silently turning around, Suyu looked at the captured Hunting Shadow, his killing intent apparent. Since there was already enmity, and it was an enmity of life and death, what was the point of keeping him alive? The purple flame demonic woman sensed Suyu's intentions. Without saying a word, she sent a purple flame into his head, burning Hunting Shadow to ashes on the spot. "Senior, how should we deal with this person?" The divine flame female demoness pointed at Ghost Eye. Ghost Master's departure allowed Hunting Shadow to escape death. Otherwise, he would have been blasted to death like his 2 juniors in the Glaze ancient cave. So you glanced at him. There was no need for him to stay. "Elder, please wait. I know a secret about Ghost Master," Gue Yin said hurriedly. He did not want to follow in Hunting Shadow's footsteps. "Tell me about it." So you looked at him. Gue Yin immediately said, "Ghost Master hid in my body and left a part of his memory in my soul. That memory seems to be related to the Glaze Civilization's Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. If it had been any other secret, Suyu would not have been interested. However, he needed to know more about the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. "Speak," Gue Yin hurriedly said. "It seems that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's Western Region Branch's Vice President, Piao Yunzi, has come to the Glaze Civilization and is prepared to take over this civilization. The sword-seeking pavilion has secretly joined the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Hearing this, Suyu fell into deep thought. If the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce really coveted the Glaze civilization, they would have acted long ago. Why did they choose this time? The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce must have sensed the existence of the third ancestor in the Glaze ancient cave, Suyu guessed. However, the sword-seeking pavilion was the territory that Suyu had left for the Cauldron. If it was occupied by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, all their efforts would be in vain. Have they already acted? Suyu asked. Gue Yin said, "It seems that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce has already acted a few days ago. I wonder if the Sleepless Empire and the Light Palace have noticed." Xiao Lifeng and Guan Yu were not fools. If the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had acted, they would have noticed. What they should worry about was whether they could resist it. The so-called Piao Yunzi was the vice president of the Western Region Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. One could imagine how powerful he was. Xiao Lifeng and Guan Yu might not be able to deal with him. After some thought, Suyu took over the Ghost Master's space storage device. After a brief search, he found the Ghost Master's personal communication technique. His soul probed it for a moment, and his lips curled into a faint smile. Since it's a coincidence, let's give the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce a surprise. At the same time, in the Sleepless Empire, all the seals within the Empire were activated. The Imperial City even activated the Great Formation that had been passed down for generations. In the Imperial Palace, Xiao Lifeng was treating Guan Yu's injuries with a grave expression. The latter's face was as pale as paper, and there was a ghastly bloody hole the size of a bowl on her back. There was an extraordinarily feminine energy left in the wound, suppressing the power of the Path Master of Guan Yu and preventing her from self-healing. Xiao Lifeng used his Path Master's power and the genius spiritual treasure to slowly expel the feminine energy. Beside Guan Yu were Xian Hua and Xian Yinhe, as well as the elites of the Light Palace. But Deputy Palace Master Lu was not among them. After Xiao Liefeng's temporary treatment, Guan Yu recovered a little. Palace Master of Light, how did you lose so quickly? Xiao Lifeng asked. A few months ago, both sides had noticed the unusual movements of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce and had already taken precautions. The Light Palace was even more prepared. Not only did they activate all the defensive seals, but they also mobilized their experts to the Holy City of Light as a precaution. With such a lineup, even if the Sleepless Empire and the Sword-Seeking Pavilion joined forces, they might not be able to break through the Holy City of Light within 10 years. But who knew that in a short 10 days, Guan Yu would fight her way out of the Holy City of Light with a body full of injuries and seek refuge with the Sleepless Empire. Among the group of people she brought, all of them were injured, and many of them were so injured that they almost lost their lives. It was evident that it was not easy for them to escape from the Holy City of Light. Guan Yu's face was ashen, and her eyes flashed with extreme hatred, as well as shame and self-blame. I was blind. I did not recognize that there were lackeys of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce beside me. She found it hard to speak and did not continue. But the meaning was clear. There were spies of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in the Palace of Light. Xianhua's eyes were filled with deep hatred. It was Deputy Palace Master Lu. She is from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. When the enemy attacked the Holy City, she activated all the seals of the Holy City, causing the enemy to invade. Palace Master was injured by Piao Yunzi in the end. And the army of the Palace of Light at the border was also infiltrated by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. When we escaped to the Sleepless Empire, we were fiercely attacked by them. Xianhua's face was filled with deep pain. Among the traitors, the clan that Xianhua was in was included. Xianhua was grateful for Guan Yu's nurturing and chose to continue following her, and did not join the rebellion. Looking at Guan Yu's pale face, she was deeply grateful. Palace Master risked her life to protect us, but many people died on the way. For example, Kong Chu. He died in the betrayal of Deputy Palace Master Lu. Xiao Lifeng took a deep breath. Deputy Palace Master Lu was a veteran of the Palace of Light, but he was also a lackey of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. In the army at the border, which was an important place for the Palace of Light, had also been infiltrated by the Palace of Light. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's influence was everywhere, making people feel cold. But fortunately, Xiao Liefeng had always been wary of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, and was extremely cautious even when opening a marketplace. There should not be anyone from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce among the higher-ups of the Empire. Palace Master of Light's health is important. Do not be too sad, Xiao Liefeng comforted. Stay in the Sleepless Empire for the time being and recuperate. Guan Yu laughed bitterly. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce has always been decisive and ruthless, and will not let this go. I had better leave as soon as possible, so as not to cause trouble for the Sleepless Empire. But Xiao Liefeng could see clearly. The Palace of Light and the Sleepless Empire were both targets of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Even if Guan Yu was not here, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would still attack. But if Guan Yu stayed here, after his injuries recovered, he could be of great help. Our fates are the same. Why should we separate? Xiao Liefeng said. Guan Yu was grateful. If I, Guan Yu, do not die this time, I will forever be on good terms with the Sleepless Empire. Let's talk about this in the future. Xiao Liefeng smiled bitterly. Whether or not they could survive this great calamity was uncertain. As he spoke, suddenly, there was an urgent sound of a jade pendant at Xiao Liefeng's waist. Opening it, Xiao Liefeng's majestic figure shook, his eyes calm. Monarch, what happened? Guan Yu had a bad premonition. Xiao Liefeng gripped the jade pendant tightly and said in a low voice, just like your army at the border, there's a rebellion in my army. Currently, the rebels have the upper hand and control the border. If the border was controlled, it meant that the restrictions at the border of the Empire had also fallen into the hands of the enemy. The army of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would enter unhindered and reach the foot of the Imperial City. Pass down the order. Strictly supervise the people guarding the Imperial City. Xiao Liefeng was instantly uncertain, not knowing if there were spies from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce among his people. The news of the invasion of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce quickly spread through various channels. Everyone in the Imperial City was panicking. From ordinary warriors to aristocratic families, they were all preparing to escape. Once the Imperial City was breached, it would be the time for them to escape. At the same time, the elites of the Sleepless Empire hunted down the people related to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, preventing them from destroying the Imperial City from within. Chapter 2358. At the same time, the army of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce and the rebel army of the Nightless Kingdom sent their troops to attack the Imperial City. On this day, outside the Imperial City, it was silent. Countless warriors covered the space inside and outside the Imperial City like dark clouds. The people of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce were everywhere. They finally reached the city and stopped in front of the Great Formation of Inheritance. This formation was passed down from the founding monarch. It had been strengthened and strengthened by generations of monarchs. It was impregnable. Even if a great venerable came, they wouldn't be able to shake it. On the city wall, Xiao Liefeng, Radiant Jade, and the others looked like they were facing a great enemy. They looked down at a colorful carriage among the army. The carriage was covered with a snow-white, soft beast skin. A slender man with a half-naked upper body was lying on it. He looked very young. His facial features were feminine. His long blue hair was very eye-catching. Numerous outstanding beauties surrounded him, and every single one of them was a breathtaking figure. Many of them were top beauties like Bai Yun and Hong Xian. Radiant Jade stared at that person with a serious gaze. Xiao Liefeng said, "This person is Piao Yunzi, right?" His words were filled with undisguisable murderous intent. More than half of the 81 city lords of the Nightless Kingdom had died at this person's hands. Yes, he is likely to be at the perfect heaven tier. Radiant Jade, who had fought with him before, felt it the most. Radiant Jade was at the late stage of the heaven tier, but he couldn't last more than 10 moves against this person. From this, it could be inferred that his cultivation had probably reached the consummate state of the heaven tier. Xiao Liefeng's breathing quickened. The perfect heaven tier was not something he could fight against. Don't worry. We can only endure. They can't do anything to us. Xiao Lifeng looked at the enemy troops outside the city. He wasn't discouraged. The core of the Nightless Kingdom was him and the higher-ups. As long as they didn't die, the Nightless Kingdom could rise again. Therefore, as long as they protected themselves and the Imperial City, they wouldn't be defeated. Xiao Lifeng, this is the general trend. If you surrender obediently, it will be good for everyone. Piao Yunzi pushed away the woman who was serving him and sat up. He laid on the chair and smiled sinisterly. Xiao Yefeng's eyes were calm as he said, "The Star Alliance Commerce Chamber of Commerce has gone against the grain and interfered with the 7-star civilizations on their own. Aren't they afraid that they will be boycotted by many civilizations?" Piao Yunzi chuckled. Of course not. Humans are indifferent and cold-blooded creatures. As long as their interests aren't violated, they won't make a move. They're like a herd of pigs in a pen. When one of the pigs is killed, the other pigs will only watch coldly. Only when it's their turn to be killed will they resist with all their might. How dare he compare them to pigs? Xiao Lifeng was secretly angry, but he couldn't deny that Piao Yunzi's words were indeed a portrayal of the world. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would only infringe on the interests of the Lazuli civilization. The other civilizations would not take the risk of boycotting the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce until they became a target. Your insignificant imperial city can hold on for one day, but not forever. Piao Yunzi guided patiently. If you are willing to surrender now, not only can you avoid death, you can also become an honorable member of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Also, from now on, the Radiant Palace will be under your jurisdiction. How about it? His expression was very serious. It didn't seem like he was lying. Radiant Jade's mind wavered. She couldn't help but look at Xiao Lifeng. Would he agree? Don't embarrass yourself by trying to sow discord. If I, Xiao Lifeng, was really so muddle-headed, I would have been pierced by thousands of arrows and become a pile of bones. Xiao Yefeng's mind was very clear. If the other party was really so kind, why did he have to fight all the way to the city wall? He just wanted to sow discord between Xiao Lifeng and Radiant Jade. Piao Yunzi's eyes flashed. He wanted to say something else, but Xiao Lifeng ordered, "Everyone from a Nightless Kingdom, listen up. From now on, only defend and do not go out. Unless I personally give the order, no one is allowed to open the formation." Yes, at the juncture of life and death, they completely relied on Xiao Lifeng as their backbone. Piao Yunzi's eyes darkened and a cold smile appeared on his lips. Xiao Lifeng, even if you don't think for yourself, shouldn't you think for your people? Walala. A group of soldiers escorted a few experts who were tied up to the city wall. At a glance, they were all city lords of the Nightless Empire. They would rather die than surrender and were finally captured by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. There were a total of 11 people who were forced to stand side by side. They have sworn to follow you loyally and have contributed greatly to the great cause of your Nightless Empire. Do you have the heart to see them become prisoners and then be beheaded? Piao Yunzi threatened. In other words, he was prepared to execute them in front of the two armies. Xiao Yefeng's heart sank, and his eyes were filled with anger. He clenched his fists and pulled them together. Those were his trusted subordinates, but he also understood that he could not agree to Piao Yunzi's request. Once he surrendered, it would not only be the 11 of them who would die, but the entire imperial city. The best example was the Palace of Light. Those who were disobedient were all killed. No one knew how many people had died. Piao Yunzi, attacking defenseless people. Are you worthy of your status as the vice president of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce? Xiao Lifeng said. Piao Yunzi smiled darkly and snapped his fingers. Immediately, a soldier cut off the head of the first captive. The head rolled and blood splattered. Xiao Yefeng's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. From now on, kill one person every 2 hours until you are willing to lead the people of the Nightless Kingdom and hand over the original palace lord of the Palace of Light. Piao Yunzi smiled faintly and lay down on his side again. He drank wine and had fun with the beauties in a leisurely manner. It was as if this was not a battlefield, but a place where he could easily deal with flowers. Xiao Lifeng closed his eyes in pain and did not look at the other 10 captives. War was painful, but if he fell in pain, it would cause more people to suffer. He suppressed the pain in his heart and ordered one last time. Everyone, remember, only defend and do not go out. Thus, he retreated with Bright Jade and the others to a pavilion on the city wall to rest. He did not believe that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would continue to waste time. There were less than 80 years until the end of the world. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would not waste a large amount of manpower, material resources, and financial resources for a civilization. It was only a matter of time before they retreated, as long as they could hold their ground. Fortunately, with the lesson of the Palace of Light, Xiao Lifeng had carried out a great purge of the imperial city in advance and completely eradicated the hidden dangers of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. If there were no accidents, they should be able to hold their ground. However, in the princess's residence, the princess in the room was holding a jade pendant. She had just received a message from the man in the bamboo hat. Your Highness, the billions of people of the Nightless Kingdom are in danger. Please save them, the man in the bamboo hat said. Princess Qianyu frowned. Father is leading the experts of the kingdom to defend against the enemies. Why is he asking me? The man in the bamboo hat said, Your Highness, you do not know. It is the king's stubbornness that has caused the people to fall into trouble. What do you mean? Princess Qianyu was displeased that the man was speaking ill of her father. The man in the bamboo hat said sincerely, The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce only wants the Nightless Kingdom to surrender and will not hurt anyone. However, the king's stubborn resistance made the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce angry. They decided to break the imperial city's restriction at all costs and kill everyone in the city. Princess Qian, you was a little hesitant. Your Highness, the Palace of Light is a good example. Because of their stubborn resistance, they were slaughtered by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Do you want to see the imperial city end up the same way? His words were very touching, especially to those who were inexperienced. But my father, will they let him go? Princess Qianyu also felt that such resistance was meaningless. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was very powerful. The defense of the Palace of Light was not weaker than the Nightless Kingdom. But what was the result? Wasn't it destroyed just like that? Don't worry, Your Highness. The Vice President of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce promised that as long as they enter the city, not only will the king be pardoned, but he will also be given the territory of the Palace of Light to become the overlord of the colored glaze civilization. Really? Princess Qian, you was instantly tempted. It's absolutely true. He's the vice president. How could he lie to a promise he made? The man in the bamboo hat continued. Your Highness, if you can make this happen, you will be the most outstanding princess in the history of the Nightless Kingdom. You will be remembered forever by the people of the future. Princess Qianyu's heart thumped. She was a vain person. The man in the bamboo hat immediately thought about how his name would be passed down through the ages. Your Highness, doesn't the king always think that you are not good enough? This time, you have made some achievements and made him look at you in a different light. Princess Qianyu couldn't help but say, Okay, then I will go and persuade my father to surrender. No, the man in the bamboo hat said, How stubborn is the king? If your Highness tries to persuade him, not only will he not appreciate it, he might even think that your Highness is unreasonable and imprison you. Princess Qianyu thought about it and agreed. Then what should we do? Princess Qianyu asked. The man in the bamboo hat pondered and said, Your Highness, do you trust me? Princess Qianyu trusted the man in the bamboo hat and said, I trust you. She would rather trust someone she met for the first time than someone who had accompanied her for a long time and helped her. If you trust me, Your Highness, you can activate the city barrier formation alone. The man in the bamboo hat said, No, if my father finds out, he will beat me to death. Princess Qianyu hurriedly said. The man in the bamboo hat shook his head and said, This is a good thing for the country, the people, and the king. Not only will he not punish you after this, he will also dote on you even more. Princess Qianyu hesitated for a long time before she finally gritted her teeth and said, Fine, I will go. Not long after, Princess Qian Yu quietly left the princess residence and went to the palace. The core of the inheritance formation was located in the palace. Xiao Lifeng was usually guarding it personally. Now that Xiao Lifeng was on the city walls dealing with the army below, Xiao Lifeng had sent his trusted aides to guard it. A total of 9 fish dragon realm experts surrounded the control hub so tightly that not even a mosquito could enter. Chapter 23:59. She pretended to panic and jogged to the gate of the central hall of the formation. Outside the main hall, there was a layer of exceptionally tight defensive formation that blocked it from entering. She struggled to break the formation and said in a panic, "9 guardians, father has been ambushed. Go and save him." Tears streamed down her face as she spoke. Her sorrowful expression did not seem to be fake at all. The 9 fish dragon realm experts were shocked. How could the monarch be ambushed? But since they were personally appointed by the monarch to guard the formation, their minds are naturally not ordinary people. Although they were shocked, they did not panic. "Princess, don't panic. Please tell us in detail. Who betrayed us? How are our injuries? Is the enemy under control?" An experienced guardian did not rush to rescue her, but asked for details. Princess Qian Yu had made up an excuse on the spot. She had never thought about the details. It's the Radiant Palace Master who betrayed us. Father's injuries are very serious. He is fighting with her now. The situation is very critical. Hearing this, the protectors exchanged glances with each other, their hearts filled with doubt. Not to mention that Radiant Jade was seriously injured and was not a match for the monarch. What was the reason for her betrayal? At this critical moment, she should be united with the monarch to fight against the enemy. "Princess, please wait a moment. We will contact the monarch to see if he really needs our help." The 9 guardians immediately sent a message to Xiao Lifeng. Princess Qian Yu's heart skipped a beat. If they really sent a message, they would be exposed. Ouch! Suddenly, Princess Qian Yu had an idea. She squatted down in pain and held her abdomen. "Princess, what's wrong?" the guardians asked with concern. Princess Qian Yu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. "I was injured while delivering the message." The 9 guardians looked at each other. They naturally did not dare to ignore the princess. "Let's carry the princess in to treat her injuries first." The guardians cooperated well. 3 of them activated the formation, 3 of them guarded the outside, and 3 of them carried the princess in. After closing the formation again, the guardians gathered around and asked, "Princess, may I ask where you are injured?" The princess held her abdomen. "I'm injured here." Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, the princess withdrew her hand, and a powerful talisman flew out from her hand. The talisman paper emanated the divine might of a heaven realm Tao Lord, and it enveloped the 9 of them within it, causing them to feel as if they were carrying a myriad of mountains on their backs and were unable to move an inch. "Princess, what are you doing?" The 9 protectors turned pale with fright. They never thought that the princess would attack them. Princess Qian Yu rose to her feet, but she didn't seem to be injured at all. She said with a solemn expression, "Guardians, I'm sorry. I had no choice but to do this. But for the people of the Nightless Kingdom, I had to do this." She quickly walked towards the core of the formation, raised a sword in her hand, and forcefully slashed at it. "You can't." One of the protectors was so frightened that he was forced to explode his own body and let his soul leave his body to stop the princess. He slapped the sword out of the princess's hand. The soul of a fish dragon was so powerful that the princess couldn't resist it at all and was sent flying. The protector didn't dare to hurt the princess, so he could only hug her and said, "Princess, destroying the nation protecting formation will bring disaster to the people of Daybreak." Blood trickled down from the corner of Princess Qian Yu's mouth, and she lowered her head in shame. "I was foolish. Please punish me, guardian." As a protector, how could he dare to punish Princess Qian Yu? He put her down and hurriedly went to protect the formation core. He said, "Princess is young and immature, but you can't do this anymore, understand?" Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. Then, the chill spread to his entire body, starting from his back, and turned into a ball of ice. He turned around with difficulty and saw the princess, who had a look of righteousness on her face. She shook her head and sighed. Guardian, you're the one who doesn't understand. Only by doing this can the people of Daybreak be saved. I'm sorry, but for the sake of the people, I have to kill you. The thing that had pierced through the protector's body was none other than the 9-5 Heaven's Frost Needle. The protector died with his eyes wide open, and he was frozen there forever. His eyes reflected the image of the princess, destroying the core of the formation with a single stroke of her sword. Whoosh! After the core was destroyed, Princess Qianyu wiped the sweat off her forehead and smiled with relief. The people are saved. She turned around and looked at the corpse of the protector, who died with his eyes wide open, and sighed. Guardian, sometimes loyalty is not always right. Your death can be exchanged for the safety of the people of Daybreak. You died a worthy death. After saying that, she left the other 8 protectors and happily went to the city tower. According to the Bamboo Hat Man, after the formation was destroyed, the people of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would not only pardon everyone, but also hand over the Palace of Light to her father. From then on, her father would create a great cause for generations to come. And Princess Qianyu was the one who made the greatest contribution. She seemed to have seen in the history books a long, long time in the future, a heroic and righteous person who saved the people of the Nightless Empire at a time of crisis, and who brought the Nightless Empire to the peak of history. Creak, creak. The destruction of the array formation caused the entire Imperial City's array formation restrictions to slowly weaken. Xiao Lifeng and Radiant Jade, who were resting in the main hall of the city tower, were the first to sense the changes in the formation. The two opened their eyes, broke through the roof, and looked up at the formation above them. The formation. Oh no, the core of the formation has been destroyed. Xiao Yifeng's face was extremely pale. It was as if someone had dug a giant hole in the bottom of the canoe while he was on the rough sea, putting him in a desperate situation. Radiant Jade staggered and laughed bitterly. It's the same as the Palace of Light. Someone has betrayed you. No, the 9 protectors are my trusted subordinates. They would never betray me, Xiao Lifeng murmured. Xiao Yifeng's eyes were full of despair as he looked at the weakening formation. Father, father. At this moment, Princess Qianyu ran over with a smile. Xiao Lifeng came back to his senses and glared at her. Why are you here? Go back to the palace. It's dangerous here. Even at the moment of despair, Xiao Lifeng still treated Princess Qianyu as a treasure. Princess Qianyu laughed. Hee, the danger is gone. I'm not afraid. Before Xiao Lifeng could understand what she meant, Radiant Jade's eyes flashed. Qianyu, what do you mean by the danger is gone? Princess Qianyu said mysteriously. Of course it's the literal meaning. Didn't the vice president of the Star Association Chamber of Commerce say that as long as we are willing to show our faces, not only will we be pardoned, but the Palace of Light will also be handed over to Father? Thump! Xiao Lifeng felt his heart beat violently. He slowly looked at Princess Qianyu, an unbelievable thought appearing in his mind. Qianyu, what did you do? Xiao Lifeng held Princess Qianyu's shoulders. His throat was blocked by something. Princess Qianyu thought that the results were about to be revealed. It was fine to let Father know now. In any case, she had already acted first and reported later, doing what she had to do. Hee, I was the one who destroyed the formation core. Princess Qianyu laughed. Once the formation is destroyed, the Nightless Empire will no longer resist, and the Star Association Chamber of Commerce will fulfill their promise. At that time, the Nightless Empire will reach the peak of history, surpassing all previous generations. She looked forward to the future as she talked to herself. Where are the 9 protectors? Didn't they stop you? Xiao Yifeng's old body trembled, and his eyes became extremely empty. Princess Qianyu did not notice anything, and she laughed complacently. How could they compare to my intelligence? With a simple trick, I trapped all of them. She paused, then said honestly, however, there was a stubborn protector who wanted to stop me from saving the world, so I had to kill him. Sai, really, why did you have to do that? Xiao Lifeng could no longer listen to her. Or perhaps His heart had been shattered by his daughter. The Nightless Empire did not die at the hands of the enemy. Instead, it died at the hands of his precious daughter. Qianyu, why did you do this? Xiao Lifeng shook Princess Qianyu's shoulders, and tears of pain flowed down his face. He was in pain for the fate of the Nightless Empire, and even more in pain for his daughter's ignorance. Princess Qianyu blinked her eyes. Didn't I say it was to save the world? Only by surrendering will the Star Association Chamber of Commerce let the world go. Who told you this? Xiao Yifeng's eyes were blurred. Princess Qianyu thought for a moment and said embarrassedly, "It was the man in the bamboo hat who told me. He was really thinking for the Nightless Empire, and that was why he asked me to activate the formation behind my father's back. Please don't blame him in the future." Slap. A resounding slap landed on Princess Qianyu's face, causing her attractive face to contort in pain. Her body was sent flying like a broken shoe, and it smashed into a stone pillar in the palace, shattering it into pieces. Princess Qianyu fell to the ground, and she rolled a few times before she stopped. Her mouth was full of blood, and her eyes were wide open. She said in pain, "Father, I did it for your own good, for the Nightless Empire, for the world. It's fine if you don't understand me, but you still hit me. I don't have a father like you." Unexpectedly, what she got in return was a roar that Xiao Lifeng had never heard before. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and he gritted his teeth as he roared, "If I had a choice, I would have crushed you to death when you were born." He regretted it. He had never regretted it before. Why did he let her live in this world? And why did he work so hard to raise her? What kind of sin did he commit to raise such a daughter who deserved to be hacked to pieces? He ordered her to not activate the formation again and again. Princess Qianyu did not listen to a single word. Instead, she accepted it as the truth when outsiders egged her on. The most ridiculous thing was that she claimed to be doing it for the world, but she did not hesitate to kill the protector who had doted on her since she was young. Was she still human? She was more heartless than a beast. In the end, she even caused a great disaster, harming the entire Nightless Empire and all the people in the Imperial City. She did not know what she had done wrong, and she was still in the dark. Princess Qianyu was full of grievances. She gritted her teeth and looked at the army of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce below the city. She thought, "Father, you will understand that I am right in a while. When that time comes, I will not forgive you no matter what you say." As the formation weakened to its limit, it completely shattered. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce maintained a deep silence. They were all waiting for Piao Yunzi to speak. Piao Yunzi finally sat up leisurely and looked at the princess on the city wall with a smile that did not seem like a smile. He said sinisterly, "Pass down my order. Kill everyone in the city. Leave no one alive. If there was a duplicate chapter, please delete the book from the shelf, then add it again, and everything will be back to normal." Chapter 2360. The experts on the city walls were not surprised at all, apart from their pale faces. No one would believe that the Star Association Chamber of Commerce would show mercy and forgive them after spending so much effort to attack the Nightless Kingdom. There was only one exception. Princess Qianyu stood rooted to the ground, unable to believe what she had just heard. However, the words "leave no one alive" still reverberated in the air, telling her again and again that the Star Association Chamber of Commerce was going to massacre the entire city. No, it's not like that. Princess Qianyu climbed to the top of the city wall with difficulty. She wanted to question the Star Association Chamber of Commerce, but the army of the Star Association Chamber of Commerce charged into the city unhindered and started a massacre. A series of screams immediately rang out. The area below the city walls was instantly dyed in blood. Princess Qianyu looked at the corpses of the citizens of the Nightless Kingdom and the dazzling redness. Princess Qianyu felt a chill in her heart. She was unprecedentedly afraid. She was in trouble. She was in big trouble. Those deaths were all because of her. No, it has nothing to do with me. I was also deceived. Princess Qianyu was not willing to bear the responsibility, nor did she dare to. She muttered to herself, trying to shift the blame. "Soldiers, listen up. If the city stands, we stand. If the city falls, we die." Xiao Lifeng shouted. He had no more hope of survival. However, there were only a few people who responded. The martial artists, generals, and soldiers on the city walls all glared at Princess Qianwei. Their hateful gazes converged into a raging flame that could burn the heavens. I am willing to die for my country and my family, but please forgive me for not being able to protect the princess. A general threw down his sword, sat on the ground, and waited for his death. He would rather be hacked to death by the soldiers than die protecting a princess who deserved to die. I will only die for the people, not for the princess. Please grant the princess death. Please kill the princess to appease the anger of the world. Please kill the princess, my king. In the face of national crisis, all the living beings on the city walls shouted in unison for Princess Qianwei to be killed. Every word and sentence was filled with hatred for Princess Qianwei. Xiao Lifeng closed his eyes in pain. Then, he opened them and looked at Princess Qianwei coldly. Come here, stand in front of the city. Kill yourself and apologize to the souls of the people, generals, and soldiers that you killed. Princess Qianwei was being pointed at by thousands of people, and she cried out in fear, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just thinking for the sake of the world. Why are you treating me like this? These words enraged everyone even more. Kill the princess. If she doesn't die, I won't rest in peace. Kill, kill, kill. Princess Qianwei's rebuttal was drowned out by the voices of the people. The feelings that Xiao Lifeng had for Princess Qianwei had completely disappeared along with the increasingly pungent smell of blood. Xiao Lifeng moved and grabbed Princess Qianwei by the nape of her neck. He brought her to the front of the city wall and said sorrowfully to the generals, warriors, and martial artists who were fighting a bloody battle downstairs, I, Xiao Lifeng, am useless. I have raised this kind of evil creature who brings disaster to the country and people. This is the biggest mistake I, Xiao Lifeng, have made in my life. Now, as the monarch of the Nightless Kingdom, in the name of Princess Qianwei's father, I hereby execute this bastard. He had already made up his mind. He clenched his fist and exerted force, intending to crush Xiao Lifeng's head. However, at this moment, Piaoyanzi suddenly made his move. A few white clouds floated past him, and his figure appeared behind Xiao Lifeng. An incomparably pale palm imprinted on Xiao Lifeng's back. Xiao Lifeng was already prepared. He had no choice but to let go of Princess Qianwei and fight back with all his might. Radiant Jade also did not have the slightest intention of waiting for death. He flew over and attacked Xiao Lifeng from the front and back. Haha, that's fine. Let me experience the battle power of the two super experts of the colored glaze civilization. Piaoyanzi was not afraid at all. He fought with the two of them with ease. At the same time, after an intense battle, in the end, the defending army of the Nightless Kingdom was unable to stop the army of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, which was several times their size. They were completely annihilated in the city tower. The army of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce charged into the city and strictly carried out Piaoyanzi's orders. They killed everyone they saw, regardless of whether they were living creatures or spiritual pets. Anything that was alive had to be killed. No one was left alive. Corpses piled up in the city, and blood flowed like a river. From the martial experts to the ordinary citizens, to the old, the weak, the women, and the children, none of them escaped death. When dusk fell, only the army of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was left in the once bustling imperial city. They held weapons and checked the corpses one by one. If they found any survivors who were pretending to be dead, they were immediately killed on the spot. Under the high temperature, the boundless blood water emitted a thick blood mist. The blood mist filled the imperial city and turned it into a bright red city. The setting sun was like blood. Under the illumination of the setting sun, the silent imperial city was like a ghost city that had emerged from the yellow springs. It added a gloomy hue. The Nightless Kingdom was destroyed. At the end of the world, a white cloud floated over. Piaoyanzi's left and right hands each captured a person. They were Xiao Lifeng and Radiant Jade. The former only had half of his body left and was on the verge of death. The latter was unharmed, but all of his power had been sealed. He was just like an ordinary person. Greetings, Senior Piaoyanzi. A black figure came out from the city tower. He was none other than the mysterious man in the bamboo hat. Beside the man in the bamboo hat were the wooden Bai Yun and Hong Xian and the dejected Princess Qianyu. Piaoyanzi threw the two of them to the ground. Their capture meant that the Palace of Light and the Nightless Kingdom would become the dust of history. There would no longer be the Palace of Light and the Nightless Kingdom in this world. How was the battle situation? Piaoyanzi asked. The man in the bamboo hat replied, apart from a few fugitives, there are no survivors. And very good. Piaoyanzi's gaze turned to Princess Qianyu. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Princess Qianyu, what do you think? Princess Qianyu's body trembled. She immediately lowered her head, not daring to look into Piaoyanzi's eyes. She was afraid that he would include her in the list of no survivors. I like to leave behind future troubles. Now, you must be regretting destroying the core of the formation. You must hate me, right? Princess Qianyu hurriedly said, No, I don't. I don't hate you. Is that so? Piaoyanzi walked over. He stretched out his index finger and lifted Princess Qianyu's snow-white chin. There was a hint of evil in his eyes. I have never tasted the taste of a princess. Are you willing to enjoy yourself under my knee? Princess Qianyu was not a young girl. She naturally understood what he meant. He meant that she would become Piaoyanzi's plaything. However, she agreed without hesitation. She nodded her head repeatedly. I'm willing. I just hope that you don't kill me. Piaoyanzi smiled wickedly. There are two conditions for me to spare your life. First, become my woman. Second, show your loyalty. He shoved a dagger with a peculiar design into Princess Qianyu's hand and said, This is my Tao weapon, the frigid soul dagger. With this dagger, I'll be able to sever the soul of a Deva realm Tao Lord. Princess Qianyu's heart skipped a beat. She could somewhat understand what Piaoyanzi was trying to do. I'll only believe that you sincerely want to stay by my side as my plaything if you kill your father. Piaoyanzi was more than happy to see the father and daughter kill each other. Princess Qianyu gripped the dagger tightly. Her hands were trembling. She did not dare to make a move. After all, he was her biological father. Princess, have you forgotten that he wanted to kill you before the army arrived? The plaited bamboo hat man said from his side. I don't think he treated you as his daughter at that time. Only then did Princess Qianyu recall what had just happened. At that moment, she thought she was dead meat. She could no longer see the love and affection in Xiao Liefeng's eyes. All she saw was endless coldness and unfamiliarity. The fear of death caused resentment to rise in her heart. Moreover, have you forgotten that your father slapped you and punished you to face the wall for an outsider? The plaited bamboo hat man continued. When they came out of the glazed ancient cave, Xiao Liefeng had slapped Princess Qianyu once because of Su Yu. The new hatred and the old hatred caused the dissatisfaction that Princess Qianyu had suppressed in her heart to explode. She walked forward with the cold soul dagger. Xiao Liefeng, do you know that you were wrong? At that moment, Xiao Liefeng was extremely weak. He opened his eyes with difficulty and looked at his ferocious daughter. He said weakly, I know. The biggest mistake of my life was having a daughter like you. Princess Qianyu was furious. She gripped the dagger and stabbed it into Xiao Liefeng's chest. Don't blame me. You were the one who wronged me first. I didn't do anything wrong, but you wanted to kill me. You're not my father at all. The demonic energy in the cold soul dagger immediately invaded Xiao Liefeng's body, rapidly destroying his life. Xiao Liefeng was in extreme pain, but he clenched his teeth and laughed coldly. My stupid daughter, believe me, your fate will be worse than mine. Ha ha! Princess Qianyu's eyes were filled with hatred. She stabbed the dagger again and again. Blood splattered all over her face, making her look as hideous as an evil spirit. Princess Qianyu only stopped when Xiao Liefeng's life was completely gone. She breathed rapidly. After confirming that Xiao Liefeng was dead, she came before Piaoyanzi and returned the dagger with both hands. The conditions have been fulfilled. From today onwards, I am Senior Piaoyanzi's woman. She thought that she could escape death by fulfilling the two conditions. Little did she know that Piaoyanzi had been toying with her from the beginning. Look in the mirror. Look at your face. I don't want a woman like you. Po Yenzi laughed evilly. He kicked Princess Qianyu to the ground as if he was kicking a wild dog. The man in the bamboo hat laughed. If Senior Po Yenzi doesn't like it, please don't waste it. Why don't you give it to me? Up to you. Po Yenzi said nonchalantly. He turned to look at Radiance Jade, who was tied up at the side. He laughed evilly. I only need you After that, he left with Radiance Jade. The man in the bamboo hat and Princess Qianyu were left on the city wall. Princess Qianyu climbed to her feet and said submissively, Big brother, I will listen to you obediently from today onwards. Don't let the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce kill me. Okay? The man in the bamboo hat laughed mysteriously. Listen to me obediently? Okay, I have a favor to ask of you for a long time. Chapter 2361. What? Princess Qianyu couldn't help but step back when she heard the creepy laughter of the man in bamboo hat. She had a bad feeling about this. The man in bamboo hat sneered as he took off his robe and bamboo hat, revealing a handsome face. If Suyu was here, he would definitely recognize that the man in front of him was none other than Gu Taishu, a man who had been entangled with her since the beginning of Jiuzhou. My name is Gu Taishu. It's my honor to meet you, Princess. Gu Taishu smiled politely. Princess Qianyu was not very confident. She looked at him and said, You said you wanted to ask me for help a long time ago. What do you mean? Literally, Gu Taishu said with a smile, and wisps of blood-red mist gradually encircled his body. The mist grew thicker and thicker until it surrounded Gu Taishu like a blood cloud. Roars of beasts could be heard from the blood cloud, for incomplete beast shadows were roaring ferociously. Princess Qianyu stepped back in fear. However, she was shocked to find that her 9 divine bodies had appeared uncontrollably. The 9 divine Laksana were majestic and solemn, confronting the 4 beast shadows. What is that thing? Why can it affect my 9 divine bodies? Princess Qianyu was even more terrified and uneasy. Gu Taishu put his hands behind his back and said leisurely, Princess, have you ever heard that the 9 divine bodies are divided into innate and acquired ones? Princess Qianyu had indeed heard about this from her father. So what? Gu Taishu chuckled. Since you have heard about it, you should know the difference between them. To evolve the 9 divine bodies into the 9 paths body, you need to train your divine body constantly. As for the acquired ones, a creepy thought popped up in Princess Qianyu's mind. She remembered that her father used to say that the only way to evolve the 9 divine bodies into the 9 paths body was to devour. Only by devouring the essence of countless living creatures could one have a chance to evolve into the 9 paths body. The process was evil and bloody. It was extremely horrifying. Could it be that he wanted to devour her? It seems you have guessed it. Gu Taishu's eyes lit up. More than half of my 9 divine bodies were devoured by a little bastard. I had lost the chance to evolve into the 9 paths body. However, one day I learned that there was another 9 divine bodies in this world. The innate 9 Daos physique was none other than Princess Qianyu. If I can consume the innate 9 Daos body, then I can take its body for myself. Not only will I be able to recover my previous divine body, but my divine body will also improve greatly. My chances of transforming into the innate 9 Daos body in the future will be much higher. Princess Qianyu's heart trembled. You approached me for my divine body from the very beginning. What else, my princess? Do you really think that everyone in the world revolved around you like your father and the people around you? Gu Taishu said disdainfully. It had to be said that Princess Qianyu was the most spoiled girl he had ever seen. She was completely self-centered and thought that it was natural for others to treat her well. In the end, he even killed Xiao Laifeng, who had always loved her dearly. This extremely selfish and stupid woman was an eye-opener for him. However, it was precisely because of this that he had the opportunity to get close to Princess Qianyu and plot against her in secret to help them accomplish their great plan. No, it's not like that. Princess Qianyu felt a sense of peril, and she hurriedly retreated backward. Father, save me. Her words stopped abruptly. Only now did she realize that her father was dead, and he had died by her hands. The experts who had protected him in the past had also perished. The world was vast, but she was the only one left. There was no longer Xiao Lifeng, who had silently protected her in the dark and watched her train. There were no more martial artists who had racked their brains to accompany her in silence. There were no more protectors who cared whether she was injured or not. There were only enemies who had revealed their true colors. No, this is not what I want. Princess Qianyu finally could not help but burst into tears. Gu Taishu sneered. Can crying change your fate? Princess, perhaps your father has always doted on you, but he has never taught you one thing. Everyone has to pay for their actions. No one is an exception, including you. As soon as he finished speaking, the 4 beast shadows on the surface of his body roared madly. Princess Qianyu turned around and ran, crying as she ran. She wanted to seek help, but all she could find was her father's cold body, fallen corpses, and destroyed Nightless Kingdom. The one who had caused this was none other than herself. Accept your fate. Your own people want you dead, and so do your enemies. Heaven and earth cannot tolerate this. Your death is not to be regretted, Gu Taishu said coldly. With a swoosh, a line of blood shot out from the surface of his body and penetrated Princess Qianyu's ankle, causing her to fall to the ground. Before she could get up, several more lines of blood shot into her body. Princess Qianyu screamed in excruciating pain with every hit. Not only did the blood lines penetrate her body, but they also penetrated deep into her bones to absorb the body of 9 divine spirits hidden in her body. Like an earthworm, she struggled and rolled on the ground, begging for mercy. However, Gu Taishu showed no mercy. More and more lines of blood entered her body in response. The body of 9 divine spirits condensed on the surface of her body became weaker and weaker as hundreds of lines of blood crazily devoured them. Instead, many weak Dharma forms of gods appeared behind Gu Taishu. Through this method, Gu Taishu deprived Princess Qianyu of her body of 9 divine spirits. The whole process lasted for 10 minutes. During this period, Princess Qianyu had never experienced such extreme pain in her life. At this moment, she finally regretted it. She regretted that she would rather believe the man in the bamboo hat whom she had only met once than the strict orders of her father. She had ruined everyone, and she had ruined herself. In the endless pain, her soul finally collapsed, and her mind was completely lost. She was reduced to a fool who had lost consciousness, crying and laughing at the same time as she lay on the ground. Gu Taishu, who had obtained what he wanted, roared at the sky. The body of 9 divine spirits has finally been restored, and it's even more powerful than before. 9 complete shadows of ferocious beasts appear behind him. Among them, 4 of them were extremely solid, releasing the pressure of a path master. Suyu, when my body of 9 divine spirits is completed, it will be the day I turn you into ashes. Gu Taishu couldn't forget Suyu. The hatred of Suyu for stealing his wife and injuring him made him unable to forget Suyu at all times. As long as he didn't destroy Suyu, he would never have peace. Looking at Princess Qianyu, who had become a fool, Gu Taishu sneered and raised his finger to touch her forehead. He said calmly, "Once, I let Suyu go because of my carelessness. In the end, he became my mortal enemy. I won't make the same mistake twice." Even if Princess Qianyu had become a fool, Gu Taishu wouldn't let her go. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Princess Qianyu, who was obviously crazy, suddenly pleaded with him with her eyes clear. "No, I won't be your enemy, I swear." She had pretended to be crazy and tried to deceive Gu Taishu into letting her go. However, Gu Taishu was cruel and merciless, and things didn't go as she had expected. Gu Taishu was stunned, and then his face became colder. "Then, it's all the more reason for me to kill you." Puff! A bright light flickered at the tip of his finger, and it pierced through Princess Qianyu's head. In the end, the princess who had single-handedly harmed the Empire of Nightless collapsed completely. After that, Gu Taishu crushed a piece of jade and said telepathically, "Golden-eyed Langjun, I've got what I wanted, and I'll fulfill my promise to help you complete that task. Farewell." When he finished speaking, he flew away. On the other side, in a large hall, Piao Yunzi had an evil smile on his face as he looked at the indifferent Radiant Jade. At this moment, there was a ball of light that was constantly expanding and contracting in the abdomen of Radiant Jade. That was the doctrine artifact that Radiant Jade had hidden in her body. At this moment, it was being activated and was about to explode. I didn't expect you to be prepared and leave a trace of the Pathmaster's power in the doctrine artifact, Piao Yunzi said leisurely. Radiant Jade said coldly, "Women who fall into your hands never have a good ending. Therefore, even if I explode myself into pieces, I won't let you have a single cent." Piao Yunzi chuckled. "Of course you can die. But what about your members of the Light Palace? The female disciples called Xianhua and Xianyin are also great beauties. If I catch them, guess how I'll treat them?" Radiant Jade's expression tensed up. Before the battle, she had secretly sent the two girls away. But the colored glaze civilization now belonged to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. How long could they escape? Once they were caught, their fate would be... "Piao Yunzi, what do you want?" Radiant Jade glared at him. Piao Yunzi smiled evilly as he sized up Radiant Jade's beautiful body. "As long as you're willing to serve me well and make me happy, of course I can let them go. Otherwise, I'll make up for it with their bodies." Shameless. Radiant Jade was furious and ashamed. "It's up to you whether you agree or not. The thing I, Piao Yunzi, hate the most is forcing others." Piao Yunzi crossed his arms in front of his chest and chuckled. Radiant Jade's eyes flashed with struggle. After a moment, she bit her lips, and the flickering light in her body gradually dimmed. She would die either way. Rather than letting Xianhua and Xianyin bear the pain, it was better for her to bear it herself. Piao Yunzi's eyes were blazing. Like a hunter who had succeeded in his evil plan, he licked his lips excitedly. But at this moment, a cold voice pierced through the sky of the hall. The words of a lowly person cannot be trusted. The tone was cold and somewhat dreamy. Piao Yunzi felt his vision blur for a moment before he fell into an incomparably long dream. In the dream, he was entangled by a group of peerless women, making it difficult for him to extricate himself. He knew that this was a dream, but he did not want to wake up. "Wake up!" Piao Yunzi shouted in the end. He forcefully dispersed the dream and returned to reality. But Radiant Jade had already disappeared in front of him, leaving behind only broken dream fragments. Piao Yunzi broke through the roof and roared, "Who is it? Who is it that spoiled my plans?" Outside the Imperial Palace, in a deserted temple, the seal on Radiant Jade's body had been removed, and she regained her strength. She looked at the tall and slender woman in snow-white clothes in front of her and was pleasantly surprised. The Destined Daughter. Chapter 2362. As the number one emissary of light, she spent most of her time in secluded cultivation and rarely showed her face. The calamity of the Light Palace had come too suddenly, and a Light Jade had no time to rescue her. He didn't think that not only was she safe and sound, she even saved him from Piao Yunzi. What surprised her even more was that Xianhua and Xianyin were standing beside the Destined One. Not only did she save him, she also saved Xianhua and Xianyin. The Lady of Destiny's expression was tranquil, without joy or sorrow. "Greetings, Palace Master." Radiant Jade was pleasantly surprised, sighing, "I didn't think that the one who saved my Light Palace in the end would be you." "It's only right," the Lady of Destiny said calmly. "We shouldn't stay here for long. Let's leave the Lazuli civilization as soon as possible." Radiant Jade nodded and took a deep look at the nightless empire behind her. Her crystal-like eyes were filled with sorrow. It's a pity that Xiao Laifeng, the mighty leader of a generation, died in the hands of his own daughter. "Wait here for me for a moment. Before I leave, I want to help Xiao Laifeng get rid of that vile spawn." Radiant Jade said coldly. "No need. She has already received the punishment she deserves," the Woman of Destiny replied. Radiant Jade was startled, but she didn't suspect anything. Just like what Xiao Laifeng had said before he died, she would regret her ignorance. Princess Qianyu had destroyed everything and sent herself to the wolves. How could she possibly have a good ending? Then let's go. As the palace master, I will send you on your final journey. I hope that you can enter an 8-star civilization as you wish, Radiant Jade said desolately. Her original intention was that after the disciples she had nurtured entered an 8-star civilization, they would in turn help the Palace of Light overcome the great calamity. But now, the Palace of Light had been destroyed. Her only wish was for them to enter an 8-star civilization, where they would be carefree and not have to miss the Palace of Light. Not long after, the group of people left the Colored Glaze civilization. At that time, Piao Yunzi searched both inside and outside the imperial city, but he couldn't find the whereabouts of the Light Jade, even after a long time. He couldn't help but be angry. Send my order, capture Xianhua and Xianin, and bring them to me immediately. He wanted to take revenge for Radiant Jade's escape. After a long time, he calmed down, crushed a jade pendant, and transmitted a message. Ghost Teacher, quickly come and clean up the Nightless Kingdom. Su Yu, who was leading the higher-ups of the swordsmanship-seeking pavilion to the Nightless Empire at top speed, sighed softly when he saw the voice transmission. I'm still a step too late after all. When he learned that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had already attacked the two sides, he led his people and rushed over. Not long after he left, he received a message from Piaoyanzi to Ghost Master. Who would have thought that the Light Palace and the Nightless Empire, these two super forces, would not even be able to hold on for a few short days before they were completely destroyed? He couldn't make it in time even if he wanted to. Let's go. Su Yu's eyes turned cold as he led the army to rush over at top speed. 2 days later, the Sikh Sword Pavilion's army had arrived at the city. When Piao Yunzi received the news, he was slightly startled. So fast. He expected it to take at least 10 days. That's good too. I can free myself and head to Colored Glaze City. Piao Yunzi's only goal in occupying the Colored Glaze Ancient Cave was to occupy the Colored Glaze Ancient Cave. In order to successfully occupy this place, they had to first eliminate the 3 overlord forces of the Colored Glaze civilization. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to succeed. Among them, the sword-seeking pavilion had already surrendered to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. They only needed to deal with the Palace of Light and the Nightless Empire. Now that everything was going according to plan, he would let the swordsmanship-seeking pavilion take over the territories of the two so that he could explore the glazed ancient cave with peace of mind. Send someone to welcome them. Piaoyanzi ordered. Soon after, a group of people from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, led by Deputy Palace Master Liu of the former Light Palace, went to the front of the city to welcome them. Deputy Palace Master Liu was full of smiles. She had secretly dealt with the Ghost Teacher many times and could be considered an old acquaintance. Now that he was in charge of the entire Colored Glaze civilization, she would naturally benefit from it. As she waited, a dark cloud finally came from the horizon. What was slightly strange was that the cloud seemed to contain some burning flames. However, these were all minor details and were not important. When the dark cloud completely came, she did not see the Ghost Teacher. However, she recognized the group of higher-ups of the swordsmanship-seeking pavilion. Where is the swordsmanship-seeking pavilion master? Deputy Palace Master Liu asked. One of the higher-ups said woodenly, the pavilion master is in the sky. He invites Deputy Palace Master Liu to come up and meet him. In the sky? Was he referring to the inside of the cloud? Deputy Palace Master Liu did not take any precautions and flew into the dark cloud. However, as soon as he entered, he was greeted by the sight of 4 people whose bodies were burning with flames. Seeing them, Deputy Palace Master Liu was stunned for a moment. She felt that they looked very familiar. Then, she exclaimed in surprise, the purple flame demoness? She might not know the other demonesses, but she knew the infamous purple flame demoness. She was full of doubts. How did the swordsmanship-seeking pavilion get entangled with the Starfire civilization? Where is the Sword-Seeker Pavilion Master? She suppressed her surprise and decided to ask the Sword-Seeker Pavilion Master for an explanation. The Starfire civilization and the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce were not on good terms. Wasn't he afraid of being punished by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce? Didn't I answer you? In the sky, The purple flame demoness answered on Su Yu's behalf when she saw that he was too lazy to speak. In the sky? Finally, Deputy Palace Master Lu sensed that something was wrong. Looking around, he said in surprise, "You brought the ghost teacher. You are so long-winded." The purple flame demoness flicked her finger, and a wisp of purple flames engulfed Deputy Palace Master Lu, preventing him from moving. If he touched it, he would be burned to ashes by the terrifying flames. "Well, what do you want?" Deputy Palace Master Lu asked in panic. So he did not say a word. His eyes flashed as he searched his soul. After a moment, his eyes turned cold. No wonder the Palace of Light and the Sleepless Empire were destroyed in a day. There was a traitor. The Palace of Light's destruction was understandable, but the destruction of the Sleepless Empire was unheard of. The traitor was the princess. Moreover, she was tricked into destroying the core of the formation, causing the destruction of the entire empire. Death is not to be regretted. If Princess Qianyue had been in front of him, he would have slapped her to death. He had seen scourges, but he had never seen a scourge like her. In the end, she even killed Xiao Lifeng. However, Su Yu wasn't surprised by this. After all, Princess Qianyue had always been a selfish and self-centered person. In a moment of life and death, killing Xiao Lifeng to save her own life was completely in line with her personality. Don't act rashly. The Deputy Master of the Western Region Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce is in the Imperial City. You better think twice, Deputy Palace Master Lu warned. Su Yu's eyes were indifferent, and he snorted. You are just a bigger ant. The purple flame demoness understood Su Yu's intentions. With a thought, the purple flames tightened, instantly burning Deputy Palace Master Lu. Amidst heart-wrenching screams, he was burned into a charred corpse and fell from the dark clouds. The people who were waiting below were stunned when they saw Deputy Palace Master Lu's corpse falling from the sky. At the same time, a cold and majestic order came from the dark clouds. Leave no one alive. Since everyone in the Imperial City had been slaughtered, the only ones left inside should be the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce and the traitors. Killing them all would not be a mistake. With the order, the high-level martial artists of the sword-seeking pavilion and the 4 demonesses entered the city. Even Zhan Wushuang, Zixuan, and the Star Lady joined in the siege. With the 4 demonesses leading the way, who could stop them? In just a few breaths, half of the Imperial City was engulfed in a sea of fire, and the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce lost countless lives. Piao Yunzi, who was waiting for the ghost teacher in the Imperial Palace, sensed something was wrong. He rushed out immediately and looked at the raging fire in the city. He said angrily, "Who is it?" It would have been fine if he had not come out, but as soon as he did, he was discovered by the divine flame demoness. A seemingly weak and ordinary flame shot toward him. Piao Yunzi, who was in a rage, suddenly saw the divine flame coming toward him. He was so frightened that his heart beat wildly, and he cried out involuntarily, "The divine flame of the divine flame demoness?" His anger was replaced by a chill in his heart. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and cold air rose from the soles of his feet. Without thinking, he turned around and fled for his life. He did not understand why the divine flame demoness had suddenly appeared, but he knew that he was no match for her. With just a single move, he would be injured or even killed. But would the divine flame demoness allow him to escape? Chi, a wall of fire that reached the heavens, suddenly appeared in front of Piao Yunzi, blocking his path. The divine flame demoness walked out of the wall of fire and looked at him indifferently. At this moment, how could Piao Yunzi have any thoughts of a woman? There was only fear. He even regretted taking the initiative to volunteer to take on this muddy water. Divine Flame Demoness, are you sure you want to become enemies with the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce? Killing ordinary members of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was not a big deal. However, killing a vice president meant declaring war against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. The Divine Flame Demoness expression was indifferent. Senior, you said that you want to kill everyone. There's nothing I can do. As she spoke, she silently chanted an incantation. Piao Yunzi suddenly felt as if his body was about to be ignited from the inside out. The fear of impending death instantly enveloped his soul. At this critical moment, he took out a bamboo stick and hurriedly shouted, "President, save me!" He crushed the bamboo stick, and a ball of light burst out. An old man in a gray robe appeared from within. He had white hair and a white beard, and he had an immortal aura around him. His entire body gave off an unfathomable and mysterious feeling. Old man, profound secrets. The divine flame demoness expression became much more serious. In the Western region, the South Pole Immortal Wang was ranked first, and the divine flame demoness was ranked second. This ranking was based on the fact that only the 9 great 7-star civilizations were considered. If the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was considered, all the rankings would be pushed back. This was because Old Man Profound Secrets was the undisputed number 1. In order to expand the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in the Western region, Old Man Profound Secrets had challenged the strongest of the 9 great civilizations one by one, and he had never lost. It could be imagined that even the South Pole Immortal Wang had been defeated by him. The person in front of her was probably an afterimage of Old Man Profound Secrets. Its power was not even 1/10,000th of his original self. The afterimage blew a breath of air toward Pio Yunzi. Immediately, Pio Yunzi was blown out of the colored glaze civilization. The divine flame demoness wanted to give chase, but she could not. She could only watch as the afterimage of Old Man Profound Secrets gradually dissipated. After a cup of tea's time, the imperial city had been cleared. Everything was as Suyu had requested. Not a single soul was spared. Suyu stood on the city wall, silently looking at Xiao Liefeng's corpse. Behind him, the divine flame demoness returned. She sighed. Old Man Profound Secrets incarnation appeared, but he could not stop Pio Yunzi. Chapter 2363. The divine flame demonic woman stepped back subconsciously and stared at Suyu, thinking that he was about to perform an earth-shattering divine technique. However, Suyu didn't do anything. He just looked at the sky and looked away. At the same time, outside the colored glaze civilization, tens of thousands of battleships were displayed on an abandoned star near the colored glaze civilization. Meng Kier, who was training, suddenly received a message from Suyu. After reading the content, she stood up and yelled, "Pass down my order. All battleships are to enter combat mode and annihilate the enemy." Boom, boom. The tens of thousands of battleships that had been stationed on the star for several years finally moved. They lined up and covered most of the sky. Powerful cannons were aimed at the colored glaze civilization. Meng Kier squinted her eyes when she saw a panicked figure rushing over from the colored glaze civilization. Fire! Boom! Boom! Hundreds of thousands of cannons were fired at the same time. The momentum was enough to tear the sky and earth apart. The power of a single cannon was only at the level of a half-downlord. However, the power of 1,000, 10,000, or even hundreds of thousands of cannons would increase exponentially. Pio Yunzi was fleeing with all his might, afraid that the divine flame demonic woman would catch up. How could he expect that there was a mysterious force that had been hiding outside of the colored glaze civilization? Caught off guard, he became a target and was hit on the spot. At the critical moment, he unleashed the strength of the celestial realm and condensed a defense on the surface of his body. However, the defense could only last for 3 breaths of time before it exploded with a loud bang. His body suffered an unimaginable destructive blow. He didn't even have time to scream before he was drowned in the endless roar of the cannons. His Taoist body was torn apart, spraying blood all the way back to the colored glaze civilization. On the walls of the imperial city, the divine flame demonic woman and the others heard a tearing sound from the sky. Then they saw several broken limbs falling to the ground. Those broken limbs were not Pio Yunzi's body. The divine flame demonic woman, was horrified. Despite being so far away, Senior was able to kill him with just a glance from outside the universe. What kind of unparalleled divine power was this? The purple flame demonic woman and the others felt their scalps go numb. No one could save them, even if they fled to the heavens. Zhan Wushuang, Zixuan, and the Star Lady also gasped. Such divine power should be invincible in the West regions, right? So he did not even look at the corpse. He looked at Xiao Yefeng's corpse and sighed his heart. Why bother? It is human nature to love one's children, but if one spoils them too much, they will harm themselves and others. The Nightless Kingdom was destroyed by Princess Qianyu in a matter of days. Xiao Lifeng was one of the reasons. If he hadn't been biased, how could the princess have acted so recklessly? Are you acquainted with the monarch of the Nightless Kingdom? The divine flame demonic woman probed. He found it strange. How did a high and mighty senior get to know Xiao Lifeng? Suyu shook his head gently. I don't know him, but I heard from my apprentice that he was taken care of by this monarch in the colored glaze civilization. I see. The divine flame demonic woman sighed. My condolences, senior. The dead cannot be brought back to life. Unexpectedly, Suyu said calmly. Are you acting on your own again? The divine flame demonic woman was taken aback. She didn't understand what she had said wrong. She was just trying to persuade Senior not to take it to heart. How did he act on his own? She was not the only one who was confused. The demoness and the others were also confused. They couldn't understand what the Senior was saying at all. But what the Senior said next overturned everything they had ever known in their lives. I have long since left the heavenly law and am no longer a part of the five elements. How can mere life and death stop me? So you said calmly. Then he waved his sleeves. An emerald energy seeped into Xiao Liefeng's body. Xiao Liefeng's corpse, which had been cold and lifeless, was now emitting warmth. At the same time, the broken lower half of his body was being reconstructed at a speed visible to the naked eye. His meridians, bones, and flesh were being reconstructed. A moment later, his body was as good as new. Even his injuries were healed. What was even more incredible was that Xiao Liefeng's soul, which had already been dispersed, was being reconstructed in his body. All of a sudden, Xiao Liefeng's heart thumped violently. His entire body was rejuvenated. At the same time, his eyes slowly opened. They were filled with confusion. I am still alive, Xiao Lifeng murmured. He was still in a blurry state of consciousness. His eyes reflected a group of people who had frozen expressions and were trembling with excitement. The divine flame demonic woman blinked and bit the tip of her tongue. She wondered if she was dreaming. There was an absolute boundary between life and death. However, in the hands of Suyu, a dead person could be resurrected. This had completely overturned her understanding of life that she had known for billions of years. The purple flame demonic woman and the others were shocked and excited beyond words. Resurrection from the dead. It's really resurrection from the dead. The purple flame demonic woman's admiration for Suyu was unprecedentedly strong. It was like a mortal meeting a deity. The divine ancestor has appeared. We pay our respects to the divine ancestor. The divine flame demonic woman was so excited that she couldn't control herself. She knelt on the ground with the rest of the people, expressing their utmost respect for Suyu. They were sure that Suyu's level was beyond their imagination. He could very well be a path master. No, he could very well be a heavenly law master. He could even be one of the 9 great divine ancestors of the Holy Mountain in the ancient era. Only someone like that could transcend the heavenly law and not be bound by the 5 elements. Suyu said calmly, it's just a small trick. Just remember, don't make decisions on your own again. At that moment, the divine flame demonic woman finally understood what Suyu meant. She had tried to comfort Suyu by saying that the dead couldn't be resurrected. However, for Suyu, resurrecting the dead was just a matter of a thought. How could he say that he was sorry? That was why he said that she had made the decisions on her own. I dare not do it again, the divine flame demonic woman said. She didn't dare to use her common sense to judge Suyu anymore. Who knew if he would overturn her common sense the next time? Xiao Lifeng gradually regained consciousness. Looking at the divine flame demonic woman and the others, he said in a daze, demonic woman from the Starfire civilization? Where's this? For a moment, he thought that he had arrived in the world of the dead after he died. The divine flame demonic woman said, you didn't die. To be exact, Suyu saved you. Saved me? Xiao Lifeng didn't think too much about it. He thought that he was just seriously injured and was healed. Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. He looked at Su Yu, who was covered in thunder and lightning, and was surprised. The divine flame demonic woman was addressing someone as Senior. However, he still had to be grateful for saving his life. Xiao Lifeng, the Empire has been destroyed. What are your plans now? Su Yu asked. Xiao Lifeng looked at the dead princess, Qian Yu, not far away. His pupils constricted, and great sorrow welled up in his heart. She was his daughter, after all. Even though he had almost died at her hands, he couldn't feel any hatred. All he felt was remorse and regret. I have no home to return. Looking at the ruined imperial city, Xiao Lifeng sighed. Su Yu nodded. Then, are you willing to replace my disciple Su Yu and take charge of the colored glaze civilization? What? Take charge of the colored glaze civilization? Xiao Lifeng couldn't believe his ears. The divine flame demonic woman added, Xiao Lifeng, Senior has destroyed all the enemies of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, including Piao Yunzi. The sword-seeking pavilion has also submitted to Senior. Now, the entire colored glaze civilization is under Senior's control. Hearing this, Xiao Lifeng was shocked. To be able to kill Piao Yunzi, this Senior must be very powerful. Senior healed my injuries and treated me so well. How can I repay you? Xiao Lifeng asked. The divine flame demonic woman looked at Xiao Lifeng with a condescending gaze. Xiao Lifeng, Senior did not heal your injuries. Instead, he brought you back to life. Xiao Lifeng was taken aback. He nodded. Oh, I see. He didn't believe it at all. How could a dead person still be alive? At most, his injuries were very serious, and he was on the verge of death. The divine flame demonic woman sighed. Summer insects can't be compared to ice. She finally understood how Senior felt when she said that dead people couldn't be brought back to life. She was a frog in a well, and she didn't even have the interest to explain. So you didn't care. He said calmly, take care of the colored glaze civilization. When an organization called the Cauldron comes looking for you, you just have to help it develop. Xiao Lifeng had nowhere to go and nothing to do. Taking charge of the colored glaze civilization in exchange for helping an organization? Why not? Yes, Senior, Xiao Lifeng bowed. Su Yu nodded silently. The matters of the colored glaze civilization had been settled. It was time to leave for the East Domain to look for the divine throne of heaven and earth. At the same time, he would participate in the recruitment of the 8-star civilization. Su Yu hummed softly through his nostrils. Then, he activated the bizarre feathers of the ancestral dragon and left with the divine flame demonic woman and the others. The terrifying yin and yang flow and the chaotic vision of life and death caused Xiao Lifeng, who had his head lowered, to fall to the ground in shock. When he opened his eyes again, there was no one in front of him. Apart from the torn space and the horrifying vision that remained, there was nothing else. What level is that? Xiao Lifeng sucked in a breath of cold air. Only now did he realize that the divine flame demonic woman's words about resurrection might not be nonsense, but the truth. Back to Su Yu. Before he left, he flew past the Li city and took Xie Xiaoye, who was guarding the Glaze ancient cave, with him. At the same time, Meng Qir led the battleship back into hiding, secretly guarding the colored Glaze civilization. The next moment, in the depths of the universe, in a place where evil energy was rampant, a mass of light suddenly descended. When the light dispersed, several figures walked out of it. It was Su Yu, the divine flame demonic woman, and the others. With the activation of the bizarre feathers of the ancestral dragon, they instantly flew out of the colored glaze civilization and arrived at an unknown territory. What greeted their eyes was a dark red universe. It was as if the depths of a universe in front of them was a sea of blood, illuminating the universe in red. It gave him a sense of unease. The border between the West Domain and the East Domain. The divine flame demonic woman's pupils constricted. They had crossed the entire West Domain in a single breath and arrived at the border of the West Domain. Senior's magical powers were beyond what she had expected. There are still a few years before the recruitment of the 8-star civilization. Senior, Do you think we should enter the East Domain now or later? The divine flame demonic woman asked for Su Yu's opinion, not daring to make a decision on her own. Of course, Su Yu would not enter now. It was not the first time that Su Yu had heard of the evilness of the East Domain. Every moment spent in there meant more danger. Chapter 23:64. My disciple might still be on his way. Let's wait for him here for now. Su Yu found an excuse casually. As you wish, Elder. The divine flame demonic woman said, I know of a small civilization nearby. It's a place one must pass to enter the East region. Why don't you rest there? Su Yu naturally wouldn't refuse. Elder, who are you? Why did you bring me here? I still have to wait for someone in the colored glaze civilization. Xiaoya's weak voice came from beside him. She could sense that the identity of the lightning man in front of her was terrifying. She, who was clearly in the colored glaze civilization, had been brought to the edge of the West region in an instant. Su Yu then realized that Xiaoya still didn't understand the situation. Cut the crap, just follow me. He was slightly relieved that Xiaoya was still waiting for his return at the entrance of the colored glaze ancient cave. Xiaoya pouted, not daring to make a sound. Momo followed them to a small civilization nearby. The civilization wasn't big, only at the level of a 5-star civilization. But with a glance, there were many strong men on it. There were hundreds of Fish Dragon Realm strongmen and several Celestial Realm strongmen. There were countless Forgetting Words and Initial Path Realm strongmen. Their identities were self-evident. They were people from other civilizations who had come to the East region to participate in the recruitment of the 8-star civilizations. They also chose to wait here temporarily, entering the 8-star civilization when the recruitment test approached. This star is called the Shore, meaning that the East region is a sea of bitterness. Repent, and you will be saved, the divine flame demonic woman said. The divine flame demonic woman explained, this civilization is located in a special location. Over time, it became the last stop for people traveling to the East. Many warriors will make ample preparations here. Therefore, there are all kinds of resources here, even more than the main cities of the 9 universal civilizations. Su Yu nodded slightly. She didn't need to say anything. Su Yu could feel the abundant spiritual energy in the city. It just so happened that Su Yu had some things to prepare. The group arrived at the civilization. After settling down in an inn, Su Yu brought Xiaoya to the market. In the colored glaze ancient cave, the snake ancestor gave Su Yu a snake gallbladder that could heal all injuries. He had asked if it could restore the memory erased by the heavenly law, and the snake ancestor had told him that it could only restore a small part. He hadn't been willing to use this snake gallbladder, intending to give it to Qin Xianer, if can also meet again. However, the snake gallbladder was too powerful, and some special herbs were needed to neutralize its medicinal power before it could be given to Qin Xianer. Right now, he was looking for the herbs he needed. Senior, where are you taking me? Xiaoya felt uneasy. She had no idea what her senior was planning. Follow me. Su Yu led her to a dark alley with no one around. Xiaoya felt even more uneasy. Could it be that senior wants to do something to me? However, he immediately shook his head. If he really wanted to do something, why did he have to come to a small alley in the marketplace? Do you know who I am? Xiaoya was baffled. She laughed angrily in her heart. I don't care who you are. You brought me to the border of the Western region for no reason. You must be seriously ill. I still have to wait for Su Yu to come back. I'm Su Yu, Su Yu replied honestly. Xiaoya nodded subconsciously. Oh, so you're Su Yu? Who did you say you were? She reacted and let out a scream. Su Yu covered his mouth and said, I haven't seen you for a few years. Your willpower has weakened. As he spoke, the thunder and lightning on his body disappeared, revealing Su Yu's true appearance. Seeing him, Xiaoya's beautiful eyes shone intensely. She was extremely excited. Her mouth was covered, and she could only wave her hands around excitedly. Don't make a sound. Xiaoya nodded. Su Yu released his hand. I knew you were an unkillable cockroach. You would never die. Xiaoya's face was full of excitement. The haze in her heart had disappeared, and she could not help but reveal a beautiful smile. The corners of Su Yu's eyes twitched. I don't know if I should be happy or unhappy when you say that. Xie Xiaoya punched him and asked curiously, by the way, tell me, how did you pretend to be a senior? That's not right. You crossed the whole western region in a breath. It doesn't look like a disguise. Oh, I get it now. You got lucky in the Glaze ancient cave and picked up a good treasure again. Suyu hissed. I say, can't you be more pleasant with your words? What do you mean by getting lucky? Xie Xiaoya laughed. She was very open in front of Suyu. I reunited with you because I did not want you to worry anymore. But remember not to expose me. Otherwise, it will be very dangerous. Xie Xiaoya was deeply convinced. Once his identity was exposed, the four demonic women would not let Suyu off. I will keep my mouth shut, Xie Xiaoya said. Suyu nodded. Also, I need your help to find you. I have a special medicinal herb that I need your help to buy. What is there to talk about between us? Xie Xiaoya rolled her eyes. She grabbed Suyu's arm and walked out of the alley. Perhaps it was because she had regained what she had lost, but she was too excited. Her actions were much lighter than before. Suyu calmly withdrew his arm. He did not want to cause any unnecessary misunderstandings. Xie Xiaoya's disguised appearance was too beautiful. As they walked in the market, many people turned their heads to look at them. Suyu did not know how many times he had been killed by other people's gazes along the way. After half an hour, Suyu stopped in front of a shop that was reserved for women. It sold all kinds of women's products. Among them, there were some very private items for women. Hence, no men were allowed in. I need to buy 5 pounds of Southern Sea Divine Clay. It can only be found here, Suyu said. The Southern Sea Divine Clay was a sacred material for making premium rouge. It was not sold anywhere else. Only a few top-notch women's shops had it. Are you buying it to give to your sweetheart? Xie Xiaoya said with a faint smile. Suyu rolled his eyes at her. What's with all the nonsense? Go quickly. Amidst giggles, Xie Xiaoya skipped into the shop called Cloud Tower. Fairy, what would you like to buy? A maid asked obediently. Do you have the Southern Sea Divine Clay? The maid's eyes lit up. Yes, we do. Fairy, please go to the second floor. Xie Xiaoya walked up to the second floor and saw a huge display cabinet with all kinds of expensive rouge and face powders. In one of the corners, there was indeed a large piece of the Southern Sea Divine Clay for sale. She was about to step forward when a petite figure came to the display cabinet before her. She sized up the Southern Sea Divine Clay. Not good. Xie Xiaoya immediately sensed that something was wrong. The piece of Southern Sea Divine Clay was not big, only 5 pounds. If the other party got it before her, she would not be able to hand it over. Shopkeeper, I want all of the Southern Sea Divine Clay. Xie Xiaoya shouted as she walked over. As a former pirate leader, Xie Xiaoya was not one to follow the rules. Hearing that, the owner of the petite figure in front of the counter turned around and looked at her with a frown. Xie Xiaoya took a look and realized that the girl was shockingly beautiful. She had an oval face and big, bright eyes. She looked like a fairy from the mountains. Xie Xiaoya considered herself a beauty, but when she saw such a girl, she could not help but compare. Shopkeeper, I want it too. The petite girl stared at Xie Xiaoya with slight dissatisfaction. Xie Xiaoya came back to her senses and walked over. She slammed the table and glared at the shopkeeper. How much? I'll buy it. The petite girl seemed angry at Xie Xiaoya's rudeness. Shopkeeper, I came to the counter first. You should sell it to me first. Xie Xiaoya did not care. So what if you came first? I wanted it first. Oof. Unreasonable. The petite girl glared at her angrily. Shopkeeper, how much is it? The shopkeeper was stuck in the middle and did not want to offend either. He said, Fairies, why don't we split it in half? No. The two girls said at the same time and glared at the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper had no choice but to say 1.5 kilograms of Southern Sea Divine Clay. The total is 3 million Dao coins. The petite girl took out a small bag with 3 million Dao coins inside. Here you go. Oh, wait. Xie Xiaoya narrowed her eyes and smiled ambiguously. Little girl, since you and I are not going to give way, then let's see who has more money. For 1 million Dao coins. 500. The petite girl was not willing to admit defeat. 10 million. As a pirate leader, Xie Xiaoya was not someone who lacked money. Moreover, She had gained a lot in the glazed ancient cave. A mere 10 million was just a drop in the ocean. On the other hand, the petite girl was short of money. For a mere 1.5 kilograms of Southern Sea divine clay, she was really reluctant to spend more than 10 million. Don't go too far, the petite girl said angrily. Xiaoxiao put one hand on her waist and looked up with a smile. If I go too far, so be it. What can you do about it? You. The petite girl stomped her feet and glared at Xiaoxiao before leaving angrily. She went straight down the stairs to the door. A seemingly elegant young man wearing a green robe and a bamboo crown flashed out with an eager smile. Little sister Xian, you bought it so quickly? The other party looked at the petite girl with an imperceptible strangeness in his gaze. There was greed, love, and possessiveness. The petite girl was none other than Qin Xian, who had left the Azura world and traveled alone. When she was hunting demonic beasts in a certain place, she suddenly encountered the collapse of heaven and earth and was accidentally swept into a powerful spatial rift. After drifting for 10 years, she fell out a few years ago. She was heavily injured, but fortunately, she fell near the South Sea civilization. The South Pole Immortal One happened to be traveling nearby, so he saved her and brought her back to the South Pole Immortal Palace. The South Pole Immortal One was surprised to find that Qin Xian had a special Dark Phoenix physique, so he took her into the South Pole Immortal Palace. This time, Qin Xian was one of the representatives of the South Pole Immortal Palace to participate in the recruitment of the 8-star civilizations in the East. The scholar in front of her was one of the young talents of the South Pole Immortal Palace, Hai Qingxiao. Qin Xian wanted to buy some Southern Sea divine clay to refine some things she wanted to use, but this senior brother insisted on following her. Senior brother Hai, please call me Lady Qin or junior sister. Qin Xian's eyes were cold, and she drew a clear distinction between them. She was no longer the ignorant Qin Xian from before. She was especially sensitive to men's eyes. Chapter 2365. Junior sister Xian, don't be so distant. Hai Qingxiao was full of smiles. Qin Xian's gaze grew colder and colder, even more disgusted. Hai Qingxiao's smile stiffened. All right, junior sister Qin, I just want to deepen our relationship. I don't have any other intentions. Qin Xian did not give him a chance to continue. Our relationship should stop at being brother and sister. There is no need to deepen it. Being rejected so mercilessly, Hai Qingxiao could only smile awkwardly. Qin Xian bypassed her and walked out gloomily. First, she had met a rude woman, then Hai Qingxiao. Qin Xian was not in a good mood. She lowered her head and walked down the stairs. She saw a figure standing at the corner of the door. That figure seemed a little familiar. She couldn't help but raise her head to take a look. As a result, she was suddenly stunned. It's you? Qin Xian would never forget Su Yu, who had taken the initiative to hug her in the ancestral demon grounds. He had threatened her with the Azura Imperial Seal in the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Su Yu was resting with his eyes closed when he suddenly heard a familiar voice. When he opened his eyes, he saw Qin Xian's pretty face. He almost thought he was seeing things. Qin Xian should still be in the Azura world 1,000 years away. Why would she be here? Xian. Su Yu rushed forward and pulled Qin Xian into his arms. In that moment of forgetfulness, he had even forgotten that Qin Xian no longer remembered him. Qin Xian was dumbfounded. What was wrong with this person? He had hugged her immediately the first time they met, and now he was doing it again. However, what was inconceivable to her was that even though she could easily push him away, her body didn't listen to her. She just stood there motionlessly and allowed Su Yu to hug her. Her soul might have forgotten Su Yu, but her body remembered him. Feeling the strong masculine scent, Qin Xian was embarrassed. She finally found her body and pushed him away. She had wanted to scold him for being obscene or shameless, but it turned into a bashful complaint. Why are you always like this? Qin Xian did not understand what was wrong with her. She was so repulsed by other men that even an intimate form of address would cause her disgust and coldness. However, the man in front of her was hugging her in public, and she was merely complaining? His current actions were completely unlike himself. It was only now that Suyu realized that Qin Xianer was no longer the Qin Xianer of the past. His eyes were fixed on Qin Xianer, as if he could melt her in the next moment. When Qin Xianer met his eyes, she actually felt uncomfortable all over. She averted her gaze, feeling inexplicably guilty. You? Why are you here too? No. Qin Xianer felt like she was about to go crazy. Why did she ask such a question? She should have given him a stern warning. In the end, she greeted him as if they were acquaintances who had not seen each other for a long time. I'll save them. What about you? Qin Xianer replied, I'm here to participate in the recruitment of an 8-star civilization. The two of them stood face to face, one asking and the other answering, as if they were friends who had not seen each other for many years. Hai Qing Xiao, who was at the side, stared at Qin Xianer's expression, then at Suyu. His expression could not help but sink. In the South Pole Fairy Palace, Qin Xianer was known for her coldness, especially towards men of the same age. She never pretended to be friendly. Many young men had spoken to her, but she had never even answered them directly. But the current Qin Xianer was no longer behaving like she did at the South Pole Fairy Palace. Hai Qing Xiao could not help but feel jealous, interrupting, Brother, who are you? As he spoke, he sized up Suyu with a scrutinizing gaze. Suyu turned a deaf ear. At that moment, he only had eyes for Qin Xianer. Brother, I'm asking you a question, Hai Qing Xiao repeated, displeased. Only then did Suyu look at him, his gaze cold. Scram. Suyu was already showing restraint by not sending someone flying with a punch to Qin Xianer's side and interrupting their reunion. Hai Qing Xiao laughed angrily. Do you know who I am? How dare you tell me to scram? He was about to explode further when Qin Xianer turned her head and said coldly, What if I told you to scram? She did not know why, but Hai Qing Xiao had interrupted their conversation, making her feel very uncomfortable. She could not help but lose her temper. Hai Qing Xiao was taken aback, looking at Qin Xianer in surprise. His eyes were filled with suspicion. What was the relationship between Qin Xianer and this human? He stared at Suyu deeply, remembering his appearance before leaving with a light grunt. Qin Xianer looked at his back with disgust, then turned to look at Suyu. How have you been recently? If you have been well, even if I have to suffer, I will gladly endure it, Suyu said, looking at Qin Xianer. Qin Xianer's heart skipped a beat. She had heard similar sweet nothings many times before. Those words would only make her feel disgusted and disgusted. But when they came from Suyu's mouth, she felt an indescribable warmth and emotion. However, this strand of emotion had only just appeared when it was wiped away by an invisible force. You're always like this every time we meet, speaking without thinking. You said that we were just friends in the past. Don't say such frivolous words, okay? Qin Xianer pouted. Although she said that, she was not the least bit strict. All right. I understand. So he was happy. Even seeing Qin Xianer angry made him feel satisfied. But the shortest moment was just a good time. Xia carried the divine clay of the South Sea, smiling as she walked out of the Tower of the Clouds. She ran up to Suyu like a little bird returning to its home, intimately holding onto his arm. She showed him the divine clay of the South Sea and said, Here, success is imminent. How are you going to thank me tonight? Unexpectedly, Suyu's expression stiffened. On the other side, Qin Xianer's expression quickly darkened as she stared at Xia Xiaoya without blinking. Because of the angle, Xia Xiaoya had not seen who Suyu was talking to. She followed Suyu's gaze and was stunned. It's you? Do you know each other? Qin Xianer looked at Xia Xiaoya's hand that was holding onto Suyu's arm. She had been acting coquettishly just a moment ago, but her face immediately darkened. She stared at Suyu and said unhappily, I won't disturb you anymore. Suyu immediately withdrew his hand and pulled Qin Xianer back. He said, Xianer, let me explain. I won't listen. Qin Xianer was indescribably angry. You should thank your woman tonight. It wasn't easy for her to get this divine clay of the South Sea. As she spoke, she shook off Suyu's hand and walked away quickly. After walking for some distance, she suddenly froze and thought to herself, Strange, why am I angry? What does it have to do with me that he has a woman? Even though she said that, when she recalled the scene of Siesa holding onto Suyu's arm, and then recalled Siesa's peerlessly beautiful face that was not inferior to her own, she felt an inexplicable sourness in her heart. It was as if she had lost something. Suyu glared at Xiaoya. How can it not be bad? He immediately chased after her, but Qin Sienna ran all the way, not stopping at all until she ran into a heavily guarded manor. There were many experts in the manor, and there was a faint, terrifying aura that could rival that of the divine, flaming, demonic woman. This is the resting area of the South Pole Fairy Palace. Unauthorized persons are not allowed to enter. The guard at the door shouted at Su Yu to stop him from approaching. The South Pole Fairy Palace? Su Yu's expression turned grave. As the most powerful seven-star civilization among the 9 great seven-star civilizations, it was not appropriate for him to trespass. Why did Sienna join the South Pole Fairy Palace? Su Yu frowned. He had once heard the divine, flaming demonic woman mention that the South Pole Fairy Wong was not a good person. Would Sienna be in danger if she stayed in the South Pole Fairy Palace? Thinking of this, his heart could not help but sink. Why are you still here? The guard berated him. Su Yu took a deep look at the manor, then left silently. Sienna should not be in danger for the time being. If she was, she would have met with misfortune long ago. It seems like the most important thing now is to quickly concoct the snake gallbladder and let Sienna recover some of her memories. Only then will she be willing to leave the South Pole Fairy Palace and leave with me. Su Yu muttered to himself, immediately rushing back without stopping. He met up with Xiaoya midway and quickly walked to the place where they were staying. Who is that woman? Your friend? Your sweetheart? Xiaoya asked incessantly. To be honest, this was the first time Xiaoya had seen Su Yu lose his composure. Hence, she could not help but guess the other party's identity. My wife. Xiaoya opened her mouth wide, her eyes a little dull. It's over. I'm in trouble. If I had known she had that kind of relationship with you, I would not have fought with her for the divine clay of the South Sea. Hearing this, Su Yu was both angry and amused. He was angry because Xiaoya's pirate temper had not changed. He was amused because how could there be such a coincidence in this world? He had only asked Xiaoya to buy a piece of divine clay of the South Sea. In the end, Qin Sienna had misunderstood his relationship with Xiaoya. Fate really makes fools of me. Su Yu laughed bitterly. After returning to the inn, Su Yu immediately began to concoct the snake gallbladder and other ingredients. Meanwhile, in the South Pole Fairy Palace, Hai Qingxiao was angrily drinking wine in a pavilion. Accompanying him were Hai Qingxiao's fellow disciples. Junior Hai, what has angered you to this extent? Could it be that Junior Qin treated you coldly again? A youth with a square face teased. Who among them had not been insulted by Qin Sienna? They were already used to it and had long given up on pursuing Qin Sienna. Only Hai Qingxiao persisted, pestering her relentlessly and refusing to give up. It's fine if I'm being sarcastic, but my feelings for junior sister Qin are sincere. Sooner or later, she will understand my feelings. What I'm angry about is that she treats me so well, yet she treats this wild man who popped out of nowhere differently. Hai Qingxiao heavily smashed the wine cup on the table. With a paw, the wine cup shattered. The youth with a square face was instantly jealous. There's such a thing? Thus, Hai Qingxiao told them everything that had happened. After listening, the few youths present did not feel good. They had thought that Qin Sienna's personality was like this, but now it seemed that Qin Sienna had deliberately distanced herself from them. This kind of differential treatment made it hard for them to accept it, especially when Hai Qingxiao said that the wild man only had a cultivation level of half a step to Dao Master. Chapter 2366. I really don't understand why a peerless woman like Qin Sienna would treat such a person differently. A senior brother sighed. If news of this gets out, people will think that the disciples of the South Pole Fairy Palace can't even compare to a half-path master. Another senior brother said angrily. The difference between Qin Sienna's attitude towards them and Suyu's made them feel uneasy. Senior brothers, all of you have come out of the great wilderness of the South Sea recently. so your strength must have improved greatly, right? Why don't you practice before the recruitment of the 8-star civilizations? Hai Qingxiao said thoughtfully. The great wilderness of the South Sea was like the glaze ancient cave of the colored glaze civilization. It was a mysterious place passed down from ancient times. This group of geniuses had cultivated there for several years, and their strength had improved by leaps and bounds. However, due to the lack of time, they didn't have the time to practice and learn from each other. The senior brothers looked at each other, revealing a rather strong interest. They didn't want to deal with a half-path master by themselves. However, if he could secretly spy on the strength of his fellow disciples, then it would be worth it. They were now senior brothers, and in the near future, they would be competitors on the same stage. Everyone wanted to know each other's strength in advance. Therefore, each of them had their own ulterior motives. They nodded one after another. Junior Brother Hai's suggestion is good. The recruitment is extremely dangerous, and it will only benefit us if we practice in advance. They all agreed immediately. Okay, where is that human? Hai Qingxiao shook his head. I didn't follow him, so I don't know where he is. However, this civilization is only so big, so it's easy to find a person. We will find him in 3 days. Okay, in 3 days, we will wait for the representatives of the South Pole Fairy Palace to visit him. In the inn, Suyu was carefully preparing the snake gallbladder. The preparation process wasn't complicated, but many aspects needed to be precise, and one mistake could easily lead to failure. He had bought 5 pounds of Southern Sea divine clay in preparation for failure. However, since Qin Sienner urgently needed the Southern Sea divine clay, he focused on reducing the probability of failure as much as possible, hoping to save more Southern Sea divine clay for Qin Sienner when the opportunity arose. For this, he didn't hesitate to consume his soul power to ensure that he didn't fail. A whole day later, Su Yu's head was dizzy, as if he had been training continuously for several years. His mental energy was severely depleted. However, his tired eyes were filled with gratification. The one in his hand was a bottle of jade-colored spirit liquid, while the one on his hand was concocted with snake bile. As long as there was a chance for Qin Sienner to drink it, she would more or less regain some of her memories. After carefully keeping it, Suyu rubbed his aching head. After a moment of silence, he took out the heaven-destroying rod that the divine flame Demonis had given him. He didn't have the time or opportunity to explore before, but now he finally had some time. He caressed the body of the Heaven Destroyer rod and felt a few bumps on his fingers. He fixed his eyes on it and saw the words Heaven Destroyer rod. The words were bold and imposing, and they were filled with an overbearing feeling of looking down upon the world. As he held it in his hand, Suyu faintly felt as if he couldn't hold it, and his arms sank down uncontrollably. That's strange. Suyu was surprised. He didn't feel the weight of the heaven-exterminating rod, but his arm felt like it was difficult to hold it. This was under the condition that it wasn't activated. Once activated, according to the divine flame Demonis, it could change its size and length at will. Let's give it a try. He instilled the desolate force into the Heaven Destroyer rod and shouted at the same time, "Grow!" Swoosh! Sure enough, the Heaven Destroyer rod immediately changed from the length of a rolling pin to the length of a 3-foot sword, and its weight instantly increased by 30 times. Suyu's hand couldn't help but sink down, and he almost couldn't hold it. Suyu was surprised and tried to instill a little more desolate force into it. As a result, it increased by 3 times, and its weight increased by 300 times. Plop! Suyu was caught off guard. The Heaven Destroyer rod suddenly became extremely heavy, and he staggered and almost fell to the ground. His face was flushed, and he exerted all his strength to slowly lift the Heaven Destroyer rod. For this, he didn't hesitate to use the Sky Dragon body. Because the dragon blood had been drained, Suyu's Sky Dragon body was far from what it used to be, but he still had the state of forgetting words. In the end, he couldn't lift it, and could only stabilize it. If it was a little heavier, Suyu would never be able to lift it. In desperation, he had to withdraw the desolate force, and the Heaven Destroyer rod slowly shrank and finally became a rolling pin. Unbelievable. Suyu had only instilled the desolate force, and the Heaven Destroyer rod had become so heavy. If he instilled the Path Master's strength, wouldn't it be heavy enough to crush a 7-star civilization? His eyes were filled with a trace of excitement, and he confirmed that this was indeed a top-grade treasure, no worse than the Royal Dragon Sword. However, it is quite difficult to control it. Suyu frowned and thought. With its weight, Suyu would be tired before he could kill the enemy. If only the dragon blood in my body hadn't been extracted. Suyu sighed secretly. With the strength of the Sky Dragon body, he could certainly activate the Heaven Destroyer rod. With this thought in mind, his heart moved. It might be difficult to find dragon blood elsewhere, but this was the last civilization to leave the western regions. The prosperity of this place was no less than any of the cities of the 9 great 7-star civilizations. He immediately set off and went to the marketplace. After searching carefully, he didn't find any shops similar to the one in the Palace of Light that provided dragon blood. Just as he was feeling disappointed, he suddenly raised his eyebrows and turned around abruptly. "Your Excellency, you've been following me for a while." Behind him stood a yellow-robed young man with shifty eyes and a treacherous look. "Sir, I've been observing you for a while. Is there anything that you can't buy?" Without waiting for Suyu to ask, the yellow-robed young man introduced himself. "I'm not talented, but in this market, I know which house has a few nests of rats, which family's female dog has stolen a wild male dog, and which family's male cat is fickle." The corners of Suyu's mouth twitched. In fact, as soon as the other party spoke, he knew his identity. In the marketplace of civilization, he was a kind of person who specialized in serving as a guide for outsiders in order to earn money. However, his refreshing and refined self-praise was really refreshing to Suyu. "All right, I'm not looking for rats, cats, or dogs. I'm only looking for dragons," Suyu said. The yellow-robed youth chuckled. "Dear customer, you must be joking. Hundreds of millions of years ago, when the dragon race was in decline, the streets were filled with dragons, and even beautiful dragons could be bought. But now, who would dare to sell dragons? Aren't you afraid that the dragon race will come and annihilate you?" The current dragon clan was different from the past. Now that they had become the #1 race in the outer realm, no one dared to buy or sell the dragon race anymore. Dragons are out of the question, but there must be someone selling dragon body parts, right? Suyu said. The yellow-robed young man shook his head with certainty. No, this was already at the edge of the western region, not far from the southern region where the dragon clan resided. Unlike the colored glass civilization, which was located in the depths of the western region, the dragon race might not know if they secretly sold some dragon blood. Just as Suyu was feeling disappointed, the yellow-robed youth suddenly lowered his voice and said, "Of course, there is no such thing on the surface. However, there is still such thing in the dark." Suyu's heart moved. The shore was a bustling trading area. Since there were open transactions, there were naturally underground transactions as well. "Lead the way." Without hesitation, Suyu tossed 100 Tao coins to the yellow-robed youth. The eyes of the yellow-robed youth, which were as small as green beans, sparkled immediately. He said with great joy, "Young master, you are so generous. I like it. Hee. Come with me. I guarantee that you will be satisfied." Under his guidance, Suyu walked through a winding, dilapidated path and came to a small market hidden deep underground. Most of the people in the market were masked, hiding their identities. They were all on high alert, and there was a faint atmosphere of mutual hostility. "Do you see the tent in the innermost part?" The yellow-robed youth pointed inside and said, "That is a shop specially set up by a person named Qin Yangzi. Every day, some dragon body parts will be sold at a fixed time. If you are lucky, you may be able to buy dragon blood." After saying that, the yellow-robed youth cupped his fists and said, "Since the way has been pointed out, I will take my leave now." He walked out of the underground market with a smile. But at the entrance of the underground market, he encountered an extraordinarily tall person. The other party was shrouded in a black robe, and his whole body was emitting a mysterious aura, making it difficult to see his true self. Standing in front of him, The yellow-robed youth felt an inexplicable sense of suffocation, and his heart began to panic for no reason. He hurriedly made way, saying, "Sir, please." The black-robed person stood there, his eyes quietly looking at the yellow-robed youth. The yellow-robed youth's heart was thumping wildly, and it was beating faster and faster, as if it was about to jump out of his throat. His face gradually turned pale, and his eyes flickered rapidly. He was about to faint from suffocation. Luckily, the black-robed person was silent for a moment, then walked into the underground market without saying a word. Only then did the yellow-robed youth heave a sigh of relief. He realized that in a short moment, his whole body was drenched, and his limbs were trembling uncontrollably. What a frightening person. The yellow-robed youth's lips trembled, and he turned to look at the back of the black-robed person. At once, his whole body shivered, as if he were an ordinary person who had seen a ghost. "I can't stay here any longer. I have to leave quickly." The yellow-robed youth held onto the wall, his legs trembling as he crawled out of the underground market. He flew out of the city, not daring to stop for even a moment. Suyu went to the tent of Qing Yangzi. When he opened the tent, there were already 3 or 4 unidentified people waiting inside. Suyu's arrival caused them to look at him cautiously, but they continued to wait as if nothing had happened. "Are you also here to buy the body materials of the Dragon Clan?" After Suyu sat down, a soft, flirtatious voice floated over from beside him. Suyu's expression was calm. "You don't have to ask me what I am here to buy. You will know later." "Oh, judging from your voice, it sounds like a little brother." The flirtatious woman came over and said, "Little brother, I am alone tonight. Do you want to slap?" Suyu's reply was a punch from Suyu. He had only used 30% of his strength, but even so, it still caused the flirtatious woman to tilt. This was even after she had sensed it and blocked it with her arms. "You are so rude." The flirtatious woman angrily rebuked. Suyu's expression was calm, and he used 2 of his fingers to probe the ground beneath him. Then, he picked up a 5-colored centipede from the ground. "You should be glad that I am a magnanimous person," Suyu said coldly. "Otherwise, it would not be too much even if I beat you to death for secretly planting poisonous insects." Among the 9 great 7-star civilizations, there was only one civilization that was good at controlling spiritual insects. Chapter 2367. The 10,000 Insects Civilization. The martial artists of this civilization were skilled in controlling all kinds of spiritual insects. Those spiritual insects had different abilities, and some were especially evil. For example, if Suyu was not mistaken, the 5-colored centipede in front of him was the enchanting blood centipede, which was quite rare in the 10,000 Insect Civilization. Once it bit someone, that person's consciousness would be taken away by the centipede's master and controlled. But it was not obvious on the surface. The woman had used her words to distract Suyu's attention, but in fact, she had secretly released the 5-colored centipede. Ordinary people would have fallen for it, but Suyu had been vigilant and had been secretly guarding against it. He had also secretly activated his transparent eye, which allowed him to discover the situation underground. The charming woman's eyes suddenly became sharper, and she could not help but look Suyu up and down. Recalling the strength of the punch just now, she guessed that he was most likely a strong man of the initial path realm. "Average level," the charming woman said disapprovingly. "If you hadn't controlled the spiritual insects to clone yourself just now, you might not have been able to do anything to me." She had no idea that Suyu had only used 30% of his strength just now. If Suyu had used all his strength just now, she would have become a corpse. "Umph." The charming woman snorted and looked straight ahead. The other 2 turned a blind eye to the conflict between Suyu and the woman. Suyu glanced around and found that there were 5 cattail hassocks in the tent. It seemed like Qing Yangzi would wait for the cattail hassocks to be full before appearing. At that moment, there was the sound of heavy footsteps outside the tent. Suyu turned his head and saw that the tent flap had been lifted, and a tall, burly man in a black robe walked in. His aura was restrained, and his cultivation level could not be seen. But he gave off an unusually strong sense of oppression. Suyu shivered slightly. He could feel that the oppressive feeling from the other party was due to him deliberately shrinking it. Otherwise, they might not have been able to withstand it. Strongman. Absolute strongman. In an instant, Su Yu's mind was racing. The black-robed man looked straight ahead, sitting on the last cattail hassock, and said calmly, "Let's begin." His voice was unusually deep, like metal, and gave off an extremely heavy sense of oppression. "Ha ha ha!" A loud laugh came from outside, and a middle-aged man with green feathers strode in with a smile. "You are today's distinguished guests." Without a doubt, it was Qin Yangzi. He strode inside and took the seat in the center, then said in a friendly tone, "Everyone, you have come at the right time. I have just received a new batch of dragon materials. I guarantee that you will be satisfied." Because dragon materials were extremely rare, their sources were extremely limited. Therefore, the guests did not have the right to make a reservation. They could only choose from whatever Qin Yangzi brought out. If there was nothing he was satisfied with, he could leave on the spot. If there was something he was satisfied with, he could stay and trade. The charming woman said angrily, "That's what you say to the guests who come every day, right? But after so many years, I've never seen you sell anything good. They're all dragon bones that have been dead for who knows how long. What use can they be?" Hearing this, Su Yu felt like he had been tricked. If they were dragon bones, what use would he have for them? That yellow-robed youth was still unreliable. But since he was already here, he might as well see it to the end. "Fairy, you are wrong. Qin Yangzi never lie. Since I said that it is fresh, then it must be fresh." Qin Yangzi took out a huge stone box. It was engraved with characters that were difficult for outsiders to recognize. "Do you see it? The characters engraved on it are all fresh dragon runes. Isn't it awesome?" Qin Yangzi said mysteriously. So you looked at it and frowned slightly. The runes on it were probably written in the ancient language of the dragon race. The general idea was that this was the coffin of a female dragon. Su Yu was secretly surprised. Qin Yangzi was a good person. He had actually raided a tomb from the dragon race. Su Yu found it hard to support such an act, because the characters were engraved by the parents of a white-haired man who had buried a black-haired man. Deep sorrow could be felt in between the lines. Doing such a thing was really against the harmony of the world. "Everyone, please open your eyes." Qin Yangzi patted the stone box. Inside was a pink young dragon that was about 100 feet long. The eyes of the charming woman and the other two people shone brightly. It's a complete dragon. Although it's a young dragon, it's already extremely rare. It had been many years since a dragon had been sold in the Coast civilization. It was easy to imagine how important the complete remains of the dragon clan was. Su Yu sighed softly. It was just a young dragon. The amount of real dragon blood in its body was pitiful. It was probably not as thick as the dragon blood in his body. Even if he got it, it would be useless. Moreover, he did not want to touch a stolen dragon's body. "What's the price?" The charming woman was eager to try. Qin Yangzi stroked the dragon's body and said, "At least 1 billion Dao coins." 1 billion? The charming woman gasped. The price had obviously exceeded her expectations. However, looking at the dragon's body in front of her, the charming woman gritted her teeth and decided to buy it. 1 billion. "Little girl, I'm here. How can you buy it?" 1 billion Dao coins. A masked man increased the price by 100 million. Another masked man did not want to be outdone. He said slowly, "I'm determined to get the dragon's body. 2 billion. The charming woman was a little anxious. She shouted, "Everyone is competing with me. 3 billion. The three of them were determined to get it. They fought with each other and raised the price to nearly 2 billion. So he was slightly shocked. 2 billion Dao coins had completely exceeded the value of the young dragon. It was really not worth it. Seeing that the frequency of the bidding was getting lower and lower, and the charming woman had the upper hand in the end, Su Yu felt that the auction should end there. Unexpectedly, the tall, black-robed man, who had not spoken all this time, calmly said, 20 billion Dao coins. How much? 20 billion? It had pushed the highest bid of 20 billion 10 times higher. Qin Yangzi was stunned. Customer, once the price is set, you are not allowed to go back on your word. The tall figure said indifferently, To me, she is a priceless treasure. There was a hint of strangeness in his words. Qin Yangzi was overjoyed. He hurriedly took the stone box and said, "Good, good, good. It's yours, customer." He looked at the black-robed man, extremely excited. 20 billion Dao coins. He was about to get his hands on it. The black-robed man reached out and pulled something out from under his black robe. It was not a money card, but a jade bottle the length of an arm. The bottle was filled with dark red droplets. Qin Yangzi was startled. "Customer, what do you mean by this?" The black-robed man became unfathomable. He calmly said, "This is pure dragon blood, and it comes from the great venerable realm dragon clan. Each drop is worth at least 100 million Dao coins. 200 drops is enough for 20 billion. The blood of the great venerable realm dragon clan?" Qin Yangzi frowned. As far as he knew, there were no more than 3 great venerables in the entire dragon clan. Every drop of their dragon blood was extremely precious and would never leak out. How could there be 200 drops? "Really?" Qin Yangzi asked. The black-robed man said, "You can check it on the spot." This was a serious matter. Qin Yangzi would not make a careless transaction and opened the jade bottle on the spot. In an instant, a stream of flames spewed out from the jade bottle, nearly burning Qin Yangzi's eyes. "Dragon's breath." Qin Yangzi gasped. It was said that only strong martial artists whose cultivation base had reached the great venerable realm could produce dragon's breath in their dragon blood. This was indeed the dragon blood of the great venerable realm. Suyu's heart pounded wildly as he watched from the side. But it was not excitement. It was a great sense of crisis. How could a normal person have the dragon blood of the great venerable realm? And 200 drops at that. There was only one answer. "Deal," Qin Yangzi said immediately. He stuffed the jade bottle into his storage space and threw the stone box into the arms of the black-robed man. Then, without hesitation, he turned and rushed out of the tent. He had a bad premonition, so he ran away immediately after obtaining the dragon blood. The black-robed man took the stone box calmly, looking at the dragon in the stone box with a sorrowful expression. Then, he calmly said, "Father said that one must be fair and just. I have taken back my sister's corpse fairly. Now, I can do what I want with a clear conscience." Suddenly, Qin Yangzi's pathetic cry came from outside the tent. He stumbled back into the tent, his body a bloody mess, and white smoke was coming from his body, as if he had been burned by some terrifying heat. "Someone has set up the Dragon Clan seal outside the tent." Qin Yangzi roared, his gaze fixed on the black-robed man. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The charming woman and the others jumped away from the black-robed man, staring at him without blinking. Qin Yangzi shouted, "Who are you?" The black-robed man put away the stone box, looked at Qin Yangzi, and slowly took off his black robe, revealing a dragon's head. It was greenish-brown all over, emitting a metallic luster, as if it was made of metal. "I'm the Lone Emperor. Perhaps you have heard of my name." As soon as he said this, everyone exclaimed in shock. The strongest of the Dragon Clan's younger generation, the Lone Emperor? The charming woman screamed, her voice filled with unspeakable fear and wariness. The Lone Emperor was known as the strongest person in the southern region, the future heir of the Dragon Clan. From the beginning of his existence until now, he had never been defeated by anyone. Instead, many famous figures in the outer regions had fallen at his hands. For example, the master of civilization of the Sky Sea Civilization, which was one of the 9 great 7-star civilizations who had reached the celestial realm, was killed by the Lone Emperor 10 years ago. The reason was that the master of Sky Sea Civilization had bought and sold a dragon without permission. The Lone Emperor single-handedly killed his way into the Sky Sea Civilization and took his head. Knowing that the person in front of them was the terrifying Lone Emperor, who struck terror in the outer regions, the charming woman and the others all turned pale. Why is it that human greed is like a ravine that can never be filled? The Lone Emperor said calmly, "My younger sister died tragically, so why must she be humiliated by your filthy greed after her death?" As soon as he said this, intense flames suddenly rose from Qin Yangzi's body. No, I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again. Please let me go." Qin Yangzi's begging was useless. Chapter 2368. The faces of the charming woman and the others sank, not daring to breathe. This was the number one heaven ruler of the southern region. Qin Yangzi had the strength of the forgetting word state, but he was as insignificant as an ant in the hands of the lonely emperor. With just a single word, he could incinerate them into ashes. What made them feel even more suffocated was that the lonely emperor had no intention of leaving after killing Qin Yangzi, who had stolen his sister's body. He stood with his back to the crowd, exuding an unusually powerful pressure. The charming woman gulped down a mouthful of saliva and said, "Lonely emperor, we didn't touch your younger sister's remains. I hope you can understand." The other two guests stared at the lonely emperor's back, as if they were prisoners waiting for the judge to decide their fate. "You have indeed not done it, but you have thought about it." The lonely emperor's words were like a cold, iron sword, piercing into their hearts and chilling them. The lonely emperor turned around and looked at Su Yu, the charming woman, and the other two guests. He said slowly, "The remains of a dragon clan are not to be trespassed. Those who violate them will be killed." The surrounding air suddenly heated up, and there were faint sparks of fire flying about. The charming woman's heart sank. She shouted, "Everyone, don't hold on to your wishful thinking anymore. Let's attack together." "All right, that's the only way." The other two guests did not hold on to their wishful thinking either. They were prepared to face the lonely emperor head-on. "What about you?" The charming woman looked at Su Yu solemnly. Su Yu was silent. He had actually been wronged, as he had never thought of fighting for the remains of the young dragon. However, the lonely emperor would not believe a word of his explanation. Would he? "Count me in," Su Yu said slowly, staring at the tall figure in front of him. The number one expert of the dragon clan? He was probably the only dragon Su Yu had ever encountered. The epic-making dragon, world annihilation dragon, evil dragon, deity fire dragon, and even Princess Linglong should be considered the previous generation of the dragon clan. They were either imprisoned or left with a remnant soul, struggling at death's door. To think that one day, Su Yu would still encounter the real dragon clan. A bunch of ants. The lonely emperor looked down at them indifferently, naturally releasing a disdainful and domineering aura. The lonely emperor crossed his arms in front of his chest, a layer of air circulating around his body. The airflow instantly seeped out of his body and turned into the form of the lonely emperor. It then split into four and rushed toward the four of them. "Be careful," the charming woman shouted, and a large number of black-shelled insects flew out from her wide sleeves. The densely packed insects covered his entire body to resist the incoming airflow. However, as soon as the airflow touched them, the insects were shredded into pieces. The charming woman was no match for him. She was sent flying by the airflow and crashed onto the ground. She died on the spot. The situation of the other two guests wasn't much better. Half of their bodies were directly blasted into pieces, and they screamed in pain. Only Su Yu was slightly better off. When the Qi current arrived, Xiao Chun calmly summoned his small world. The Qi current was like a clay ox entering the ocean, dissolving into nothingness. The lonely emperor looked at Su Yu in surprise. "You have some skills." However, Su Yu did not feel any sense of praise from his words. The other party was fighting 1 against 4, and he had even used a trace of his aura to injure the enemy, causing 1 death and 2 injuries. It was so powerful that it made people gasp in admiration. "However, it ends here," the lone emperor said calmly. Heavenly flames. Bang! The space within the tent was suddenly set ablaze. It was the terrifying fire of the dragon's breath. In an instant, everything within the tent was burnt to a crisp. A golden dragon-shaped light shield was revealed. Inside the light shield, they were like turtles trapped in a jar, engulfed by the raging flames. The other two guests were unwilling to sit still and wait for death. They summoned their own Taoist artifacts and domains. However, as soon as they were summoned, they were melted by the dragon's breath. Their Taoist bodies began to suffer serious burns. "Little brother, hurry up." The two guests were shocked. They desperately summoned the rest of their treasures to resist the terrifying dragon's breath. At the same time, they urged Su Yu to act quickly. Su Yu nodded and said, "All right, watch me." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yu suddenly turned around and rushed to the other side of the light shield. His speedy figure stirred up a whirlwind, brushing past the corpse of the charming woman on the ground and turning it into shreds. Of course, this was not caused by Su Yu's movement technique. It was because the corpse of the charming woman was fake. Under the gray robe, there were worms. The real charming woman had already burrowed into the ground under the cover of the worms. She had opened a passage in the light shield from the ground. Nothing could hide from Su Yu's transparent eye. The reason he had not moved was because he had been waiting for this moment. The seductive woman on the ground was covered with precious spirit insects. She had sacrificed so many spiritual worms so that she could have a chance to open a passage in this extremely tough and dangerous light shield. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to succeed, Su Yu rushed over. The charming woman was furious. "Stop him!" An unexpected scene occurred. The two guests had abandoned the lonely emperor and turned to hold Su Yu back. They said numbly, "Your Excellency, why don't you stay with us and resist the lonely emperor together?" At this point, everyone could see that the two guests had long been controlled by the charming woman's soul. On the surface, they seemed to have a sense of self, but in fact, they were already the people of the charming woman. Moreover, the charming woman and the two guests had been frantically raising the price of the dragon's body. Now, it seemed that they were deliberately driving up the price. They were in cahoots with Qin Yangzi. Their targets were Su Yu and the lonely emperor, the two real guests. Unfortunately, they had never dreamed that one of the guests was the lonely emperor himself. It was laughable that the charming woman had secretly ordered the two guests to deal with the lonely emperor with Su Yu, just to buy time for her to escape. "Even if you want to make use of me, you should first look at yourself." Su Yu snorted coldly and shouted, "Space replacement." What was replaced was not the position of Su Yu and the charming woman. Instead, the light shield in front of Su Yu was replaced by the opening that the charming woman had dug out. The charming woman did not understand what was going on. The opening that she had painstakingly dug out was suddenly replaced by an intact light shield. She almost crashed into it and was burned alive. On the other hand, the area in front of Su Yu had been replaced by a gap. Without hesitation, Su Yu leaped up and prepared to leave through the gap. However, before leaving, Su Yu's eyes flashed with a wine-red light. Qin Yangzi's space storage device fell into Su Yu's hands. There were 200 drops of great venerable realm dragon blood in it. How could he miss it? With this dragon blood, not only would the dragon blood he had lost be replenished, but it would also be greatly increased. The power of the heavenly dragon body that he could display would be even greater. However, the person that the lonely emperor paid the most attention to was Su Yu, the only person who could remain unscathed under the lonely emperor's aura. Moon Cage. The lonely emperor put his palms together and silently recited the incantation. An ancient aura filled the air within the light shield. The aura rapidly converged, forming a 10-foot moon. Under the illumination of the moonlight, the gap in the light shield immediately closed up. Su Yu's leaping figure had no choice but to stop immediately. His expression changed again and again. Pop! The charming woman emerged from the ground. Looking at the gap that had been restored, she almost lost her temper. If she could, the charming woman really wanted to strangle Su Yu to death. She could have successfully escaped, but now that she had been discovered by the lonely emperor, she had nowhere to go. Su Yu sighed, turned around, and looked at the lonely emperor solemnly. "I have no choice but to fight." Swoosh! A small stick the size of a rolling pin appeared in his palm. It spun in his palm and grew to a length of 10 feet. The charming woman was furious, but she had no choice but to fight the lonely emperor. 100 worms pass. She took out a small black pot, opened it, and poured the contents onto the ground. Suddenly, ferocious worms crawled out of the pot. Every worm's cultivation level was no lower than a half-path master. If thousands of worms attacked at the same time, one could imagine how terrifying their power would be. The thousands of worms turned into a black tide and surged toward the lonely emperor. The lonely emperor's eyes were calm. "They are just worms." He snorted, and a purer dragon breath than before gushed out of his nostrils. In an instant, more than half of the worms on the ground were burned to death. The rest of the worms took the opportunity to crawl onto his body and gnaw at him. The lonely emperor's eyes were filled with disdain. A layer of inky black dragon scales appeared on the surface of his body. Creak, creak, the sound of metal scraping against each other could be heard. The swarm of black worms bit into the dragon scales, creating sparks. However, they could do nothing to the dragon scales. Scram! The lonely emperor's body shook, and all the black worms on his body were shaken off. They turned into hidden weapons and shot out in all directions. When they hit the light shield, it shook violently as if it was about to shatter. The charming woman was also hit by a flying worm, and a bloody hole was punched through her abdomen. She grimaced in pain. However, most of the worms were aimed at Suyu. Suyu flipped his wrist and stuck the heaven-destroying rod in front of him. He secretly instilled the desolate power into it. Enlarge. The heaven-destroying rod that was 10 feet long suddenly became 5 feet thick, and it blocked in front of Suyu. Clang! A series of heavy crashing sounds reverberated from the heaven-exterminating rod as hundreds of bugs smashed onto the heaven-exterminating rod. With each collision, the heaven-destroying rod trembled. Suyu's hand that was holding the heaven-destroying rod was in extreme pain. He was secretly surprised. As the lonely emperor of the Dragon Clan, his physique was invincible among his peers. Unless Suyu could refine more than 200 drops of dragon blood and successfully advance the heavenly dragon cultivation body to a higher level, he would still be on par with the lonely emperor. "It's my turn." After blocking the many worms, Suyu's eyes flashed with a strange light. He shrunk the heaven-destroying rod to an ordinary thickness, then carried it and pounced on the lonely emperor. Child's play. The lonely emperor did not take it seriously. His arms were still crossed in front of his chest as he roared at Suyu. Instantly, a majestic dragon might that suppressed all living beings in the world swept out. Although Suyu was prepared, he could not avoid it. Space collapse. Suyu's face was calm. He released the space domain, causing the space between him and the lonely emperor to collapse like a bottomless abyss. The roar of the dragon poured into it. Suyu was unaffected, and the speed of the rod did not slow down. At this point, the lonely emperor finally put down his right hand and grabbed the top of his head. With his invincible physique, once caught, Suyu wouldn't be able to hurt him. Even the heaven-destroying rod would be snatched away. However, just as the heaven-destroying rod was about to hit the top of his head, a strange scene appeared. Chapter 2369. The heaven-exterminating rod suddenly twisted. The perfectly straight rod bent like a noodle and pointed at the lone emperor's back. The lone emperor was caught off guard and was struck by the staff. Clang! An intense sound of metal clashing could be heard. The lone emperor had to bear the heavy force, and 3 of the scales on his back had been smashed off. His body staggered forward from the impact, and he threw himself at Suyu. A hint of anger appeared on the arrogant lone emperor's face. He had regarded Suyu as an ant, and he had never expected that he would be injured by an ant. However, since he was the #1 prodigy of the southern region, he naturally had rich combat experience. Not only did he react immediately, but he also launched an attack at Suyu. Extreme Dragon Breath. He snorted through his nostrils, and a mysterious blue dragon breath was spat out. This dragon breath was terrifying, several times more powerful than the dragon breath it had spouted before. Fortunately, since Suyu had chosen to fight, he must have been well prepared for the combination of his moves. 3 Zhang, Small World. A mysterious small world appeared on the surface of his body once again, and it absorbed all of the azure flames. However, unlike last time, the interior of the small world was clearly much hotter. If the temperature of the dragon breath was any higher, the small world might not be able to withstand it. This move again, the lone emperor was really surprised. The dragon breath that he had used previously was just an ordinary dragon breath. It was not a big deal for the other party to be able to dispel it invisibly. However, The current dragon breath was something that even a Dao master at the Forgetting Words realm could not resist at all. Even fish dragon Dao lords could only barely resist it. What was wrong with the ant in front of him? Before he could take any further action, he felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. The end of the heaven-destroying rod in Su Yu's hand was also distorted. The end of the staff curved and struck the abdomen. Rub, rub, rub. Just as the lone emperor regained his balance, he was pushed back by the heaven-exterminating staff. Feeling the searing pain coming from his back and abdomen, the lone emperor's eyes finally revealed a trace of anger. I, the lone emperor, have been invincible all my life. It's rare for me to be hit twice in a row. All right, then I'll use my true abilities to show my respect to you. Oh, the lone emperor let out a long sigh, and the black scales on the surface of his body all stood up as if they were breathing. Tyrant Dragon, Dao Annihilating Fist. The lone emperor punched out. Tens of thousands of dragons roared within his fist, rolling like thunder. The entire barrier shook violently, as if it was about to shatter. The 30-foot small world on the surface of Su Yu's body flickered and was on the verge of shattering under the supreme fist power. If you could survive my punch, I'll admit defeat. This punch was one of the lone emperor's strongest punches. Even in the celestial being realm, only experts in the mid to late stages could withstand it. An early stage, celestial being realm Dao Lord would die upon contact. Su Yu's eyes were cold. If he took out the divine nine-dragon cauldron, he was confident that he could withstand it. But there was no need. Grow! All of a sudden, Su Yu shouted. The two ends of the heaven-destroying rod had extended to both sides and reached the end of the light shield. If it was just a little longer, it would be able to pierce through the light barrier. And with this shout, the heaven-exterminating rod finally grew longer and became incomparably heavy. The two sides of the heaven-exterminating rod immediately pierced a hole on each side of the light barrier. At the same time, due to the sudden increase in the weight of the heaven-exterminating rod, it kept falling down, tearing a long crack in the hole. Before the lonely emperor's punch could land, Su Yu folded the space and turned into a speck of dust. He quickly drifted out of the narrow crack. It turned out that this was Su Yu's real purpose. There was no need for him to fight to the death with the lonely emperor. They had neither enmity nor resentment. Therefore, his intention from the beginning was to use the heaven-exterminating rod to open a hole in the light barrier. He managed to escape, and the charming woman was quick to react. She dismembered herself into a dense mass of insects and burrowed out of the crack on the other side. After leaving, she transformed into a swarm of insects and hurriedly escaped. The lonely emperor's punch missed, and he only killed the two guests who couldn't escape in time. At the same time, the entire light barrier could not withstand the lonely emperor's blow and was completely shattered. The remaining power of the punch swept out in all directions, causing the entire underground market to collapse. Countless underground merchants and buyers in the vicinity were killed by that one punch. All of a sudden, the entire underground market was in a state of panic. All the martial artists screamed and scrambled to escape. In the crowd, Su Yu removed his disguise, put away the heaven-exterminating rod, and sneaked out of the crowd. The lonely emperor was furious. "Come out and fight me one-on-one if you have the guts." Su Yu, who had already escaped to the surface, heard the roars and shouts coming from underground. He shook his head in amusement. "Do you think I'm a fool? I've already taken advantage of you. Why should I stay and fight you?" He weighed Qin Yangzi's storage artifact in his hand and returned to the inn, satisfied. After returning, Su Yu immediately went into seclusion. For safety's sake, he set up several layers of isolation formations outside the house to prevent the scent of the dragon blood from drifting out and attracting the lonely emperor. After making all the preparations, Su Yu took out the jade bottle and stared at the 200 drops of extremely pure, great venerable realm dragon blood inside. He eagerly took out a drop and merged it into his bloodstream on the spot. In an instant, the blood in Su Yu's body was tumbling violently like boiling water. The flow of qi and blood in his body had reached an unimaginable speed. Su Yu felt as if there was a ferocious beast running wildly through his meridians, causing him a stinging pain all over his body. The most amazing thing was that wisps of flames were being born from his pores. It was the dragon's breath. This. Suyu's mouth twitched in pain. That's only one drop of blood. However, the more it was like this, the more excited Suyu became. Perhaps, after completely refining this blood, his improvement would be beyond imagination. After taking a deep breath, Suyu endured the excruciating pain and refined the dragon blood drop by drop. 2 days later, Suyu's blood was boiling, and a layer of light blue dragon's breath flames burned on the surface of his body. The dragon's roar filled his body, and he was inexplicably excited. His eyes turned golden. Everything in sight was ignited by the dragon's breath and turned into ashes. In the secret chamber, apart from the 4 walls, all the other objects on display had been reduced to dust. Even the clothes on Suyu's body were not spared and were burned to nothing. The temperature in the secret chamber was exceptionally high because of the high temperature emanating from Suyu's body. A path master of the initial path would not last more than 2 hours under such a high temperature before being roasted into human jerky. And this was because Suyu had not yet displayed the heavenly dragon body. If he did, he would probably be even more powerful than before. The power of the great venerable realm dragon blood is indeed beyond my expectations. Suyu was secretly surprised. His current physical strength, even without displaying the heavenly dragon body, was equivalent to the later stage of the celestial realm. If he displayed it, he would probably reach the early stage of the fish dragon realm. With such a physical strength alone, he could defeat anyone in the same realm. Even the lonely emperor, who was known for his physical strength, could fight for several rounds without being at a disadvantage. Suddenly, Suyu's heart moved, and he took out the heaven-destroying rod again. Grow! He instilled the desolate power into it. It became 10 feet long. The heaven-destroying rod, which had previously felt incomparably heavy, now felt light in his hand. Grow more! When it was 30 feet long, Suyu finally felt a little heavy, but he could still wield it freely. With such a physique, coupled with the weight of the heaven-destroying rod, I'm afraid even an early-stage master of the fish dragon realm would have a headache if he encountered it, right? Suyu commented. Suyu's trip to the underground market had been fruitful, and he was quite satisfied. After finishing his training, Suyu left the place of isolation. The snake gallbladder has been concocted. How should I convince Siener to drink it? Suyu began to think. With his current relationship with Qin Siener, especially in a situation where Siener had misunderstood him, would Qin Siener drink anything he gave her? Elder, you have come out, the divine flaming demonic woman, who was waiting outside the secret chamber, said respectfully. Suyu collected his thoughts and said, Yes, what's the matter? The divine flaming demonic woman shook her head lightly. It's nothing serious. It's just that the lonely emperor of the dragon clan appeared in the shore civilization for some unknown reason and started a massacre. Fortunately, the master of the shore civilization intervened and chased him away. So, Suyu said calmly, Do you need to report to me about a mere little dragon? The divine flaming demonic woman said, Elder, you are so powerful that you don't care about a little dragon. However, I heard that he lost the essence blood of the Black Dragon Emperor here. Based on the Black Dragon Emperor's temperament, he won't let this go easily. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. Could those 200 drops of blood have come from the current Dragon Emperor? But so what? He even held the Dragon Clan's most precious treasure, the Royal Power Dragon Sword, in his hands. So what if he took away 200 drops of blood? The Black Dragon Emperor? If he was from a shore civilization, I would crush him to death right now. Suyu said calmly, Disturbing my peace is a crime punishable by death. The divine flaming demonic woman nodded repeatedly. In her heart, she thought, only the elder could say something like crushing the Black Dragon Emperor to death. That was an existence that could possibly surpass the Yellow Path Master. She did not doubt Suyu's words. She had complete faith in the elder's abilities. By the way, elder, some of the disciples of the South Pole civilization seem to be trying to find out where we are staying. Should we intervene? The divine flaming demonic woman said. If necessary, I can chase them away. The South Pole civilization? Suyu's first instinct was that they were coming for him. No need, Suyu said calmly. If they were coming for him, it must be because of Qin Xianer. Suyu had not forgotten the look that the person called Hai Qing Xiao had given him before he left. Since it was related to Xianer, Suyu hoped to resolve it himself, rather than relying on the divine, flaming, demonic woman. They were just a bunch of bugs. Why bother? As Suyu spoke, he suddenly pinched his fingers together and made some calculations. He then said, "Yes, I've calculated that my disciple, Suyu, will arrive at the shore civilization in the near future. If he runs into trouble and I'm in seclusion, you guys should lend a hand." The divine, flaming, demonic woman was overjoyed. Yes, Elder. She could not wait to help the Elder. At the same time, she was extremely curious about what kind of disciple the Elder had taught would be like. He must be from an upper-class clan, right? Perhaps even one of the top-class clans. After all, with the Elder's arrogance, a low-class clan would not be able to catch his eye and become his disciple. "I'm going out for a while," Suyu said, then left the inn alone. Arriving at a deserted area, Suyu shed the lightning on his body, revealing his original appearance. He did not hide his tracks. Instead, he swaggered through the market. Not long after, Suyu faintly felt several strange gazes sweeping over him. Chapter 2370. He smiled. "That's fine. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to see Xianer. You came at the right time." He had already thought of a way to see Qin Xianer. Pretending not to notice the people following him, Suyu went to a remote manor in the suburbs and rented it at a high price. He put up a sign outside the manor. "Trash is not allowed to enter. Otherwise, you will all be drowned in the latrine." Then, he waited in the manor leisurely. In just a few hours, a sneaky middle-aged man led 3 young men in. The leader was Hai Qing Xiao, and the 2 behind him were his 2 senior brothers, Du Mingtang and Yuan Shen. Within 3 days, they had put up a bounty to find Suyu's whereabouts in this civilization. As soon as Suyu left the inn, he was immediately discovered by someone who informed the 3 of them. The 3 of them stood outside the manor, looking at the sign that had obviously just been put up. They could not help but sneer. "What an arrogant person," Du Mingtang said disdainfully. Perhaps in his eyes, those who are inferior to him are all trash. But in our eyes, isn't he also trash? Yuan Shen did not care. He is arrogant and does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He does not even understand that there is always someone better out there. His character and intelligence are inferior to others. I really don't understand why Junior Sister Qin would like such a person. What nonsense are you talking about? Can we just go in and meet him? Hai Qing Xiao's face was cold as he ignored the sign and walked in. They quickly sensed the aura of a living creature in the courtyard of the manor. It was Suyu. The 3 of them walked over quickly and saw Suyu leisurely feeding the small fishes in the pond. "Oh, you're quite free," Hai Qing Xiao said mockingly. He wanted to see any surprise or panic on Suyu's face. However, Suyu did not even turn his head. He continued feeding the fishes with great interest. He said calmly, "If you're not blind, you should be able to see the sign outside the manor. I've already said that trash is not allowed to enter. You're really brave." Hai Qing Xiao sneered. "I think you are the one with the courage. You are still so calm, even after seeing me. I am afraid you're just putting on an act, but your heart is actually beating like a drum." As a disciple of the Antarctic civilization, Hai Qing Xiao had the qualifications to say such words. Of course, in front of Suyu, he didn't even have the qualifications to make Suyu's hair tremble, let alone make his heart pound. "Who are you? Is it famous? Do I have to know you?" Suyu put down the fish food and tilted his head to look at him. These words choked Hai Qing Xiao's heart. Indeed, it was the South Sea civilization that was famous, not him, Hai Qing Xiao. Amongst the numerous disciples of the South Pole Immortal Wang, he could only be considered to be at the bottom, and he couldn't be ranked at all. Seeing that Suyu had hit the nail on the head, Hai Qing Xiao's face was filled with anger. "Humph, you don't know how to appreciate favors. Then, I can't be bothered to be polite with you." Suyu shook his head. It was as if they had ever been polite to him. He came uninvited and was overbearing. How could he be courteous at all? "I'll give you 3 options. Hai Qing Xiao held up 3 fingers. First, write a letter of guarantee that you will never see Qin Xianer again. Otherwise, you will be struck by lightning and die without a burial. At the same time, give each of us 10 million Tao coins as compensation. This manner was not cheap. Even renting it showed Su Yu's extraordinary wealth. Hai Qing Xiao added a condition for extortion at the last minute. Second, take a blow from each of us. It's up to you whether or not you want to retaliate. He was treating Su Yu like a weakling that he could bully at will. Third, kowtow to each of us 100 times. Every time you kowtow, you have to scold yourself for being a toad, eating swan meat. After stating the 3 options, Hai Qing Xiao crossed his arms and looked at Su Yu with a cold smile. Du Mingtang frowned slightly. Junior Hai, aren't you being too kind? Is this the price you have to pay for encroaching on the fairy sister of the South Pole, Immortal Palace? Yuan Chun was also extremely dissatisfied. Junior Hai, you are still not ruthless enough. To deal with such a person, you can only use force to strike fear into his heart and body. The 2 of them had wanted to see how much progress the other had made in their abilities and had used Su Yu as a target. Hai Qing Xiao had made his own decisions. If Su Yu chose to apologize or kowtow to Hai Qing Xiao, wouldn't he have come here for nothing? Hence, the 2 of them were very dissatisfied. Hai Qing Xiao said, "We are the disciples of the South Pole, Immortal Wang, after all. We still have to pay attention to our identities. If people find out about our misdeeds, it will tarnish our master's reputation." Since he had mentioned the South Pole Immortal Wang, Du Mingtang and Yuan Chun had nothing to say. The 2 of them looked at Su Yu with unfriendly gazes, as if to say, "Count yourself lucky to have escaped this calamity. Which of the 3 options do you think is the most suitable?" Hai Qing Xiao released his state of forgetting words and slowly pressured Su Yu. As long as Su Yu wasn't stupid, he should know what to choose. The second option. Su Yu smiled lightly. The 3 of them were stunned. Su Yu had actually taken the initiative to take a blow from each of them. Was he crazy? An ordinary half-step down master couldn't even take a blow from one of their fingers. They would usually be stabbed to death by a single finger. Moreover, there were 3 of them. Even if they were smashed to pieces, they wouldn't be able to take a blow from each of them. Are you sure? In fact, Hai Qing Xiao had hoped that Su Yu would choose the 3rd option. He wanted Su Yu to kowtow and apologize and scold him for being a toad lusting after swan meat. If he showed this video to Qin Xianer, no matter how special Qin Xianer's feelings for him were, they would all be wiped clean by this cowardly performance. "I don't talk nonsense," Su Yu said firmly. Hai Qing Xiao's eyes slowly narrowed, and his tone became sinister. "You chose it yourself. Don't blame me for not giving you any other options." On the other hand, Du Mingtang and Yuan Chun were secretly delighted. Du Mingtang chuckled. "Who's going first?" Yuan Chun volunteered and laughed strangely. "I think we should give the first chance to Junior Hai." "Of course I have no objections," Du Mingtang agreed happily. Hai Qing Xiao's eyes were cold. "All right, if I go first, you 2 might not have the chance to practice as a target." Du Mingtang and Yuan Chun didn't care. "Junior Hai, please don't stand on ceremony. Where did a half-step down master get the courage to take a blow from 3 down masters of forgetting words? He must have his own strong backing." Hence, the 2 of them weren't worried that Hai Qing Xiao could finish him off with a single blow. Hai Qing Xiao understood their intentions and suddenly felt annoyed at being looked down upon. He bared his teeth. "All right, then please wait and see. Su, are you ready?" Hai Qing Xiao said. "You can resist however you want. I don't mind." However, Su Yu only shrugged. "I won't resist." He really didn't need to resist against such a small fry. "Haha, looks like you're very confident in your defense." Hai Qing Xiao laughed mockingly, then pointed a finger at him. Even though he was in the air, Hai Qing Xiao didn't hold back much. A solid finger, 1,000 feet long, stabbed towards Su Yu's body. Du Mingtang and Yuan Chun looked on coldly from the side, secretly surprised. Junior Hai has improved a lot in the Southern Sea Wasteland. He has already broken through from the early stage of forgetting words to the middle stage. I wonder if that kid can hold on. Clang. The scene of Su Yu being instantly crushed into a pile of minced meat did not occur. Instead, A strange clanging sound could be heard. Suyu was standing at his original spot, not moving an inch. The finger energy that he had struck out was like an itch. When it collided with Suyu's body, it was immediately dispersed. Du Mingtang and Yuan Chun, who were watching the battle, exclaimed in surprise. They had considered that Suyu would indeed have a defensive item. However, they weren't sure if he could withstand a blow from junior high. The result was beyond their expectations. Not only did he withstand it, but he did so with ease. Even Hai Qingxiao himself was stunned, but when he heard the bewilderment of his two senior brothers, he immediately felt that he had lost a great deal of face. Unable to put down his pride, he shouted, "What kind of defensive artifact did you use?" Suyu said calmly, "I didn't. If you saw it, you could tell me." Hai Qingxiao couldn't believe that a half-step down master could withstand a blow from a middle stage forgetting words martial artist like him without using a defensive treasure. Child's play, Hai Qingxiao said angrily. Yuan Chun was afraid that Hai Qingxiao would attack again and kill Suyu. He said hurriedly, "We agreed that we would take one blow each. We, the disciples of the Southern Sea civilization, must be honest. Junior High, please step back. Don't break the promise." Hai Qingxiao retreated to the side reluctantly and looked at his two senior brothers. "Which one of you will go first?" "I'll do it." Du Mingtang looked a little helpless. It seemed like the two of them had already agreed that Du Mingtang would attack first. Du Mingtang walked over and looked at Suyu with a smile. "I'm sorry. You can attack as you wish. It's all right." Then he released his aura. It had reached the later stage of forgetting words. Hai Qingxiao's pupils shrank, and Yuan Chen's expression changed slightly. Du Mingtang had also gained a lot from his trip to the great wilderness of the Southern Sea. Du Mingtang became a little more serious. He released his domain. It was a blank blue sky. The clouds in the sky gathered and scattered, and were suddenly torn apart by something. His domain was neither white clouds nor blue sky. It was wind. Whoosh! A formless gale swept past, cutting everything in its path. Hai Qingxiao smiled at Yuan Chun. "Senior brother Yuan, you don't have a chance." Yuan Chun sighed silently. He also felt that he didn't have a chance. Even he would find it difficult to resist such a domain, let alone Suyu. No matter how strong a defensive treasure was, it would be useless. Clang. However, a strange sound of metal colliding entered their ears. Looking up, they saw that Suyu was still standing motionless in his original position, while Du Mingtang's wind domain had dissipated. Du Mingtang's face stiffened. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Hai Qingxiao's failure was partly due to his carelessness and underestimation of his opponent. However, he had prepared seriously, so why couldn't he do anything to this person? Yuan Chen's eyes shone brightly as he praised. "Amazing. You can actually take a blow from senior brother. Do watch me next." Chapter 2371. Du Mingtang took a few steps back unwillingly. He stared at Suyu and sized him up. At the same time, Hai Qingxiao's eyes flashed with a strange light. "Brat, to be able to withstand a move from my senior brother and junior brother, honestly speaking, you're quite formidable." Yuan Chun sighed in admiration. "However, since you've met me, perhaps you should say goodbye." Bang! The surface of his body rumbled like tidewater while thick downward energy surged out from within him. Du Mingtang and Hai Qingxiao were both shocked. Complete realm of forgetting words. Initially, Du Mingtang and Yuan Chen's cultivation was the same. However, in the trip to the Southern Sea Desolate, the latter's harvest was far greater than the former. Leave this brat to me." Yuan Chun took out a round wheel. This item was Yuan Chen's Tao artifact. With his current cultivation base, one could imagine how powerful it was. Even if Du Mingtang and Hai Qingxiao worked together, they still wouldn't be a match for him. "Go!" Yuan Chun displayed the round wheel, which immediately produced tens of thousands of sharp blades, all of which were densely packed together as they flew towards Suyu. Suyu had nowhere to run, and he was engulfed by the countless blades' trajectories. Theoretically speaking, he should have been torn to pieces. However, a familiar voice rang out mercilessly. Clang! Another sound of metal clashing could be heard. Yuan Chen's wheel was directly sent flying. The tens of thousands of tracks vanished in an instant. How is this possible? Yuan Chun froze on the spot as he stared in disbelief at the Dao artifact that had bounced back. Du Mingli and Hai Qingxiao were both shocked. How is this possible? Even a Dao weapon that was activated with all its might at the great perfection of the forgetting word state could not hurt this person at all? What kind of defensive magic treasure was able to block such an attack? At this moment, Suyu casually dusted off his clothes and calmly said, "One strike from each of them, and I managed to withstand it." To be honest, it wasn't that great. The faces of the three of them alternated between green and red. They had arrogantly come to Su Yu's door, and they had taken the initiative to attack Su Yu. They had even said that Su Yu could resist at will. In the end, Su Yu didn't even resist. They couldn't do anything to him. This was like slapping himself in the face. Furthermore, it was the heavy kind. Hai Qingxiao flew into a rage out of humiliation. What are you trying to do by relying on a top-grade defensive treasure? As martial artists, we should rely on ourselves, not some random magic weapon. Yes, Du Mingtang also felt embarrassed, so he said righteously, "One's own body is the foundation, and magical weapons are the side branches. If you put the cart before the horse, it will be difficult for you to go far in martial arts." Yuan Shen even criticized, "I've said it before, your character is really bad." Su Yu looked up to the sky and laughed as he listened to them defend themselves one after another. "All of you are exalted Dao Lords of the Forgetful Realm, yet you don't allow a half-step Dao Lord to use defensive treasures when fighting him?" Su Yu laughed and asked, "Are you scolding yourselves? Are you scolding yourselves? Besides, which eye of yours saw that I was using a defensive magical equipment? The so-called prodigy of the South Sea civilization was truly better than hearing about him in person." The trio's faces turned red as they felt extremely humiliated. Hai Qingxiao stared at Su Yu, his eyes glowing with greed. He thought to himself, "This lad must be wearing a high-grade defensive treasure. Otherwise, how could it have withstood our attacks? If I can seize it and use it to aid me, wouldn't my strength improve greatly?" Du Mingtang and Yuan Chen also had the same idea. The two of them had originally planned to practice their skills today, but now it seemed that their trip had not been in vain. This lad's magical equipment was definitely at a nature-defying level. Greed rose in the hearts of the three. They looked at each other and nodded without batting an eyelid. Hai Qingxiao scolded righteously, "Su, you have insulted the South Sea civilization. We will punish you on behalf of the South Sea civilization." He was clearly trying to snatch something, but his words were more pleasant than anything else. "As long as you have the ability." Su Yu's eyes were calm, even revealing a hint of coldness. "Attack." Since the three of them were here to snatch something, they naturally would not hold back. With the three strong men at the Forgetting Words realm attacking together, a powerful force erupted. And Su Yu finally made his move. He raised his right hand and flicked his fingers 3 times. With each flick, a terrifying force of the fish-dragon realm attacked. Puff, puff, puff. With the crisp sound of 3 bugs being crushed, Hai Qingxiao and the other 2 were sent flying, crashing onto the ground. Each of their bodies was badly mutilated, as if they had been pinched. The 3 of them were seriously injured, but their souls were still intact, so their consciousness was very clear. The 3 of them were horrified. Who are you?" Finally, they realized something was wrong. Su Yu's amazing defense could be attributed to the magical equipment. But what was up with the physique of the fish-dragon realm? No matter how stupid they were, they should understand that Su Yu did not rely on any magical equipment, but his own extraordinary strength. Su Yu walked over slowly with his hands behind his back. He said calmly, "Am I not the Su Yu that you want to force to kneel and apologize? Don't you recognize me?" Hai Qingxiao swallowed hard, his heart trembling violently. Looking at Su Yu, who was not very tall, he felt a suffocating sense of fear. Du Mingtang's heart trembled, and he hurriedly said, This is Junior Hai's idea. I have no ill intentions." Yuan Shen also hurriedly tried to disassociate himself. Please have mercy. I only did this because I believe Junior High's slanderous words. Is that so? So you shifted his gaze to Hai Qing Xiao. The latter's face was green with fear, his heart beating wildly. In silence, so you looked down at his lower body. He saw that his crotch was wet, and there was a pungent smell. He was so scared that he wet his pants. A person like you has the nerve to pursue Siener. So you shook his head. Such a person was not even qualified to be a love rival. Lord Su, I am a toad, lusting after swan meat. Please spare me. Spare me. Hai Qing Xiao pleaded. Su was surprised. Oh, I thought you would use the identity of the Southern Ocean civilization to scare me. In the past, when he encountered enemies with identities, they had all acted the same way. Of course, Su had never taken their identities seriously. He would kill and beat those who deserved it. Lord Su, you must be joking. We are sincerely convinced, and we dare not disturb you anymore. Du Mingtang climbed up with difficulty, wanting to leave. Did I say you could leave? Su said calmly. Thump. Du Mingtang and the other two people's hearts thumped at the same time. Lord Su, what can I do for you? Du Mingtang forced a smile. Su said with his hands behind his back. I believe you have seen the sign I erected at the entrance of the manor. Read out loud. Du Mingtang was instantly embarrassed, stammering, Trash, do not enter, or else. He had only read the first half of the sentence, not realizing that he was trash in Suyu's eyes. Hence, he did not continue reading. What about you? Do you remember? Suyu asked Yuan Shen. Yuan Shen also stammered, indicating that he had not finished reading. As for Hai Qing Xiao, he did not even look at him. Since you have not seen it, I will repeat it, Suyu said. Trash, do not enter, or else you will be drowned in the latrine. Drowned in the latrine? The three of them turned pale in an instant. Lord Su, don't be like this. We are all people of status. Everything can be discussed. There is no need for this. However, before they could finish their words, Su had sealed their desolation, power, and souls. As such, they could not even control their bodies like puppets. I, Su, am a man of my word. Since I have decided to drown you in the latrine, I will definitely drown you in the latrine. Su said calmly. Then, he brought the three of them to the latrine in the courtyard, kicking the stone cover of the latrine open. As the faces of the three of them turned red, Su threw them into the latrine with three plopping sounds. All of a sudden, the stench filled the air. Su was almost suffocated by the stench, so he immediately sealed the stone cover. Then, he came to the entrance of the manor and stared at the informant who had not gone far. With a glare, the informant felt a sharp pain in his heart, and the blood in his body boiled as if he was about to explode. You have been poisoned by me. Spread the news in the market immediately that these three people have been suppressed in the latrine by me. Suyu, the informant, was just a small character whose cultivation was only half a step to the Pathmaster. How would he dare to resist? He immediately came to the market and spread the news. In just 2 days, the news had spread throughout the whole city. If it had been someone else being suppressed in the latrine, it would probably not have caused a commotion. But Hai Qing Xiao and the other two were all disciples of the South Sea civilization. Their identity alone was enough to attract widespread attention. What, did I hear it wrong? The three outstanding disciples of the South Sea civilization have been suppressed in the latrine by Suyu of unknown origin? It can't be. The disciples of the South Sea civilization, who went to the East region this time, are all elites among men. How could they end up being suppressed in the latrine? It's absolutely true. Someone has already gone to the manor to verify it. The owner of the manor, Su Yu, generously allowed people to go and check the latrine. It's really Hai Qing Xiao and the other two. What? It's true. Then I have to go and take a look. The South Sea civilization's geniuses have been suppressed in the latrine. This is an incredible story. For a moment, the doorstep of Su Yu's manor was trampled by visitors who came one after another. At the same time, the people of the shore civilization all knew about the existence of a person named Su Yu. The divine flame demonic woman and the others were the first to receive the news. Su Yu? Senior's disciple? The divine flame demonic woman was shocked. The purple flame demonic woman said excitedly, Let's go and meet Mr. Su Yu right now. Wait. The divine flame demonic woman said carefully. Senior made it very clear that if his disciple needs help, we will intervene. Now, there is no situation. If we intervene rashly, won't we disturb his training and incur his displeasure? Hearing this, the purple flame demonic woman's heart sank. Lord Divine Flame, you are very thoughtful. The divine flame demonic woman said. How about this? You guys continue to stay here and wait for the senior. I will secretly stay near the manor and act according to the situation. After saying this, she left alone and stopped at the Qian Manor near the manor. At the same time, in the market, many people who came from all over the place heard Su Yu's name. In a shabby inn, a group of people who came from extremely distant places were gathered together. Is that Su Yu the Su Yu we know? Chapter 2372. I don't think so. I've heard that Hai Qing Xiao, Du Mingtang, and Yuan Shun are all family masters like us. Does the Su Yu we know have the right to defeat them and suppress them in a latrine pit? No matter what, let's go and take a look when we have the chance, a man with a deep voice said. The news of the uproar in the city naturally reached the ears of the South Ocean civilization. In the villa where they lived, in the backyard, for people gathered together. Qin Xiener was among them. Hai Qing Xiao and the others are too useless. They were suppressed in a latrine pit by a half-path master of unknown origin. A young female man said angrily. Her cultivation was quite extraordinary, having reached the middle stage of the fish-dragon realm. She was the one with the highest cultivation among the people present. Senior Sister Yuan, the blame doesn't lie with Hai Qing Xiao and the others, but with Su Yu. A young man at the early stage of the fish-dragon realm said unhappily. I agree with Senior Brother Fei. No matter how many mistakes Hai Qing Xiao and the others have made, they are still disciples of the South Ocean civilization. Are they trying to embarrass us by suppressing them in a latrine pit? The one who spoke was a man with a cultivation of the forgetting words realm, just like Yuan Shun. At first, he had planned to teach Su Yu a lesson with Hai Qing Xiao and the others. However, he had a mission to complete, so he did not go. Now that he knew what had happened to Hai Qing Xiao and the others, he was secretly relieved and angry. That Su Yu had gone too far. Hearing this, Qin Xiener was shocked and thought to herself, is that guy really that powerful? It can't be. Qin Xiener knew about the strength of Hai Qing Xiao and the others. They were strong men at the Forgetting Words realm, but they had all been defeated by Su Yu. It was impossible. However, she did not agree with Senior Brother Fei's words. Hai Qing Xiao and the others deserved to be suppressed in a latrine pit for picking a fight. Why did it seem like they deserved special forgiveness just because they were disciples of the South Ocean civilization? It was difficult for Qin Xiener to accept such an arrogant and condescending attitude. Senior Sister Yuan said, the most important thing now is to rescue our 3 juniors. Senior Brother Fei frowned. Should we inform our eldest senior brother and master first? The South Pole Fairy had 8 disciples, and Senior Sister Yuan was ranked second. Above her was the eldest senior brother that the South Pole Immortal One thought the most highly of, and his strength was unfathomable. It was said that Senior Martial Sister Yuan had fought with him 20 years ago, and she couldn't even last one move before admitting defeat. Now that 20 years had passed, and he had experienced the great desolate South Sea, it was hard to guess how powerful that first senior brother's strength was. There's no need. Master and eldest senior brother are already in closed-door training. There's no need to disturb them over such a small matter. Senior Sister Yuan said, it's just a small matter. We can handle it ourselves. All right, I'll follow the world. I'm going too. 2 of them decided to follow Senior Sister Yuan. Senior Sister Yuan looked at the silent Qin Xiener and asked, what about you? I'm not going. Qin Xiener replied coldly. As Qin Xiener recalled the scene of Su Yu being intimate with another woman, she didn't want to see the man who made her heart flutter. All right, you can stay here and look after the house. Senior Sister Yuan didn't insist. The 3 of them left the villa. Senior Brother Fei frowned and said, Senior Sister, Junior Sister Qin doesn't seem to care about our matters. That's right. Junior sister Qin doesn't care about the honor of the South Sea civilization at all, Zheng Long said. Senior sister Yuan didn't say anything. To be honest, she also hated Qin Xianer. Ever since she had arrived, the few of them had been like flies that had seen meat, circling around Qin Xianer all day. This made senior sister Yuan very jealous. However, as the second senior sister, she had never shown this. Don't talk about others behind their backs, senior sister Yuan said, then headed for the villa without another word. When they arrived at the villa, there was an endless stream of spectators both inside and outside. Damn it, they're all here to see the South Sea civilization make a fool of themselves. Zheng Long had a bad temper and cursed on the spot. Senior brother Fei's expression darkened. He flew into the air and released his fish dragon realm cultivation. With a murderous aura, he said, "If you don't die, stay here and watch." Under the powerful pressure, everyone looked over in fear. When they realized that it was Fei Qing, who was ranked third in the South Sea civilization, they scattered like birds and beasts. No one dared to stay. Soon, the inside and outside of the villa were empty. Senior sister Yuan looked down coldly and said, "Who is Su Yu? Come out. Don't you have eyes? Can't you see?" In the courtyard of the villa, Su Yu was quietly reading a book. Senior sister Yuan looked in the direction of the voice and was slightly puzzled. He was much younger than she had imagined. Moreover, as the rumors had said, he was really a half-path master. It was really unimaginable. "Hand him over." Zheng Long was not polite at all. He said fiercely, "You're too bold. How dare you touch someone from the South Sea civilization?" As he spoke, he quickly flew to the courtyard and jumped down from the sky. Then he stepped on Su Yu's head. That's what you get for being insolent. Unexpectedly, Su Yu did not even raise his head. He calmly said, "You should have looked at the sign at the door before entering." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yu raised his hand and grabbed Zheng Long's ankle. Then, he casually smashed him onto the ground. Bang! Zheng Long was smashed onto the ground. His flesh was mangled, and he was unconscious. He lay on the ground like a dead dog, unable to move. He had been arrogant just a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, he had ended up like this. What was even more outrageous was that Su Yu had flung him into the cesspool, which was surrounded by the crowd. With a crash, Zheng Long was thrown into the cesspool, and the stench of the day filled the air once again. Senior sister Yuan and Fei Qing's expressions changed as they witnessed the scene. Before they came here, they had thought that the reason why Hai Qing Xiao and the others had been defeated was probably because Su Yu had used some kind of trick which allowed him to succeed. But seeing it with their own eyes, that was not the case. Zheng Long and Yuan Chen's cultivation levels were similar, but the result? Like a dead dog, he had been dealt with in an instant. Such abilities were unimaginably strong. Fei Qing's face trembled, and his arrogance immediately weakened. He was about to say something when Su Yu interrupted him. "I know who you are, but please look at the sign before you speak." Fei Qing and senior sister Yuan looked over and clearly saw the insolent words on the sign. "Trash." Fei Qing's cheeks twitched as he raised his voice. "Sir, you should always leave a way out. What did junior brother Hai and the rest do to deserve such humiliation?" So you put down the scroll. To be honest, he could not be bothered to reason with people, especially someone who had an arrogant attitude. "I was only humiliating them, but they wanted my life." As he spoke, Su Yu shook his sleeves, showing them the scene of Hai Qing Xiao and the rest barging into the manor. The 3 humiliating demands, the 3 ruthless attacks, and even the ugly act of wanting to kill Su Yu to steal his treasures were all displayed in front of them. Fei Qing was a loss for words, but he still tried to argue. "But aren't you fine now? Did you suffer any physical harm? Why must you be so overbearing?" "I'm overbearing." Su Yu's gaze turned cold, shaking his head. He did not want to say another word to them. There was no need to reason with high and mighty people like them. It was clear that Su Yu was the victim. In their words, the culprit was the innocent one. Fei Qing said, "How about this? I'll give you 30 million Dao coins. Let them go immediately." His attitude did not seem like he was negotiating. It was clearly charity. It was as if Su Yu had profited greatly. Suyu silently picked up the book and continued reading, throwing Fei Qing to the back of his mind, completely ignoring him. Fei Qing spoke a few times, but Suyu did not respond to him, causing him to feel annoyed. Do you really not understand the situation you are in? You have offended the South Ocean civilization. I am giving you a chance by talking to you nicely now. It will be too late if you regret it in the future. Suyu's silence still answered him. Hey! Fei Qing was finally annoyed. Senior Sister Yuan, this person refuses a toast only to drink a forfeit. I'll go down and meet him. As a Fish Dragon Realm Master, Fei Qing was confident. He was certain that no matter how powerful Suyu was, as long as he was careful, he would be fine. Senior Sister Yuan nodded. Since words did not work, they could only resort to force. Fei Qing flew over quickly. He first released the aura of the Fish Dragon Realm, and at the same time released his realm and doctrine artifacts. He shouted, "Don't think you can look down on me just because you have some skills. The South Ocean civilization's heritage is beyond your imagination." However, he was still in midair. Suddenly, Suyu looked at him and snorted. Fei Qing's body suddenly burst into flames. It was a fire that could not be extinguished. Suddenly, Fei Qing let out a heart-wrenching scream as he fell from the sky. Finally, with a thud, he crashed onto the ground, knocking himself unconscious on the spot. With a wave of his hand, Suyu threw him into the cesspit. In this way, a total of 5 people were all suppressed in the cesspit. It was a spectacular scene. You've gone too far. Senior Sister Yuan's face was livid. Since you have repeatedly challenged the bottom line of the South Ocean civilization, I will grant you your wish. I will go back and ask my master to teach you how to respect others on behalf of your parents. Senior Sister Yuan snorted and turned to leave. Suyu's eyes turned cold. He had no parents in this world, but that did not mean anyone could insult them. You'll have to ask me first if you want to leave. Suyu took out the heaven-destroying rod and said calmly, "Grow." Swoosh! The heaven-destroying rod, which was the size of a rolling pin, suddenly became 10,000 feet long. Moreover, it was aimed at Senior Sister Yuan with great accuracy. She was startled by the sudden lengthening of the rod. Seeing it coming at her, she subconsciously tried to grab it. However, as soon as her hand touched it, she realized how heavy it was. Even though she exerted all her strength and cultivation of the middle stage of the Fish Dragon Realm, it was of no use. She was suppressed by the heaven-destroying rod, knocked down from the sky, and smashed into the manor. The heaven-destroying rod pinned her to the ground and could not be pushed away. It became heavier and heavier, causing her to vomit blood. You go with her. With a flick of his finger, Suyu sealed her cultivation and soul, then threw her into the cesspit. The South Pole Fairy Wang had a total of 8 disciples, but 6 of them were suppressed in the cesspit. Such explosive news spread like wildfire through the mouths of the onlookers, quickly spreading throughout the civilization. For a moment, the entire civilization was in an uproar. It was understandable that Yuan Chun and the others were suppressed. After all, the cultivation of the 3 of them was not top-notch. But what kind of person was Senior Sister Yuan? Chapter 2373. More importantly, according to the people who had gone to take a look, this person called Su Yu wasn't an old monster who had been cultivating for many years. Instead, he was a young man who had been cultivating for only 100 years. At this moment, everyone's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets as they tried to guess Su Yu's origins. Some people guessed that he must be a disciple of a 7-star civilization lord. Moreover, he was the disciple of one of the masters of the 9 great 7-star civilizations, who was ranked near the top. As for why they had never heard of his name, many people attributed it to the fact that he had deliberately hidden Suyu from the public. Such an important piece of news would naturally reach the ears of the South Sea civilization. When Qin Xianer heard the reports from the ordinary disciples, her eyes widened. Even Senior Sister Yuan. She couldn't believe that Suyu's power had reached such a terrifying level in just 20 or 30 years. Is that guy a freak? Qin Xianer's mouth was agape as she guessed. Fairy, please think a way to save them. If this continues, the honor of the South Sea civilization will be completely ruined, the disciple said bitterly. The South Sea civilization had never suffered such humiliation. Among all the disciples, only Qin Xian'er was still around. What can I do? Qin Xian'er pointed at her own nose. She was not even a match for Hai Qing Xiao, so how could she deal with Suyu? The disciple said, Fairy, please wake Master and eldest senior brother. Qin Xian'er hesitated. It would be easy to wake them up, but if they were to really attack Suyu, they would surely not let him off, given what he had done. The lightest punishment would be the destruction of one's cultivation, and the heaviest punishment would be death. Although she held a grudge against Suyu, she didn't want to see him die. There is no need to disturb them. I will go. Qin Xian'er didn't want to see Suyu, but she had no choice but to go. After leaving the villa, Qin Xian'er went straight to the manor. Standing outside the manor, she looked at the arrogant sign and pouted. This guy is really arrogant. I don't remember him being like this in the past. As she entered, she thought about how she could convince Suyu to let her go. He seems to be quite friendly to me. If I try to persuade him with words, he should give me some face, Qin Xian'er thought to herself. When he arrived at the courtyard, he saw Suyu sitting there, reading a book. His posture was relaxed, and his artistic conception was ethereal. He was like an immortal in a painting. Qin Xian'er felt a sense of familiarity. This scene was very familiar. You finally came. Suyu put down the book, raised his head, and revealed a faint smile as he looked at Qin Xian'er. He had suppressed Hai Qing Xiao and the others in a cesspool, but of course it wasn't out of revenge. He was waiting for Qin Xian'er. He guessed that Qin Xian'er wouldn't be able to sit back and watch her senior brother and senior sister be humiliated. Regardless of whether she was willing or not, she would come forward to plead for mercy. Qin Xian'er wrinkled her nose. You make it sound like you were waiting for me. I was indeed waiting for you. Suyu said bluntly, they're just a few useless trash. Why would I waste my time to deal with them one by one? Qin Xian'er instantly became unnatural and said awkwardly, here we go again. Can you not say such hypocritical words? Suyu chuckled, then took out the spiritual liquid made from the snake gallbladder. He divided it into 5 portions and placed them on the table. At the same time, he pointed at the cesspool and said, don't expect me to let them go just because of a few nice words from you. Qin Xian'er's heart was exposed, and she said in embarrassment, Bah, who asked you? Come, let's fight. Suyu chuckled. Okay. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked at Qin Xian'er with a smile. Go ahead and attack me. If you can harm even a single hair on my body, I'll admit defeat. A crafty light flickered in Qin Xian'er's eyes. Remember what you said? Qin Xian'er held a doctrine artifact, which was emitting a murderous aura. Her whole person had a sharp aura, and she instantly charged forward, thrusting a javelin at Suyu's shoulder. She purposely aimed for a harmless part, as she was afraid that she would really hurt Suyu. However, Suyu didn't really want to exchange pointers with her, as she had imagined. Instead, he tilted his shoulder lightly and avoided the attack. He then grabbed Qin Xian'er's waist with his right hand and pulled her into his embrace. At the same time, he pressed his other hand on her shoulder and forcefully interrupted the Pathmaster's power flowing in her body, causing her to lose her cultivation. When Qin Xian'er came back to her senses, she had already been subdued by Suyu. You, let go of me, you shameless be*starred. Qin Xian'er's body stiffened in Suyu's embrace, and her face became flushed. She didn't expect that Suyu would treat her so lightly. Suyu extended his finger and covered her lips. His eyes were filled with loneliness and expectation as he said, I don't care if I'm shameless or ain't be*starred, because I'm such a person. His words seemed to have a hidden meaning. Qin Xian'er's mind went blank, and she could only pound his chest continuously. However, she couldn't curse him anymore. Moreover, the strength of her pounding became weaker and weaker. In the end, she stopped moving and let Suyu hug her. Do you like me? Qin Xian'er raised her head and looked at Suyu quietly. Suyu nodded. Yes. How much do you like me? Qin Xian'er's eyes shone brightly. She didn't understand why she had asked such a question. It seemed like this question had been stuck in her heart for a long time. Suyu closed his eyes slowly, then opened them again. He then said earnestly and clearly, "If you want my life, I can immediately give you my love." Qin Xianer's heart thumped loudly, and an indescribable emotion welled up in her heart. There was happiness, and there was also an indescribable sadness. It seemed like she had been waiting for such an answer for an entire era. "What?" Qin Xianer looked straight into Suyu's eyes. Suyu didn't speak, but pointed at the 5 bottles of spiritual liquid. "The answer is in there." Qin Xianer pursed her lips. She and Suyu had only met twice, so it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were strangers. Drinking such a thing casually would naturally be risky. However, as she looked into Suyu's eyes, she didn't know whether it was an illusion, but she felt like there was a voice in her heart urging her to drink it. "Okay." Qin Xianer hesitated for a moment, then walked over. She picked up the first bottle and drank it slowly. A wave of spiciness entered her throat, and it was extremely stimulating. Due to the stimulation, some fragmented memories appeared in her mind. In a forest, a young boy was squatting in front of her, helping her absorb the snake's poison. She could faintly see Suyu's face from that boy. Qin Xianer looked at Suyu in a daze. "Have we known each other since a long time ago?" Suyu couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart, but he forced himself to calm down. He smiled and said, "To be precise, we've known each other for 135 years and 10 months. Tears welled up in Qin Xianer's eyes. Suyu hadn't lied to her. They really knew each other, and they had known each other for many years. The blank and incomplete memories in her mind were really related to Suyu. Then, she drank the second bottle. This time, the scene that appeared was that of a joyous wedding. Suyu was wearing a red robe, and she was wearing a phoenix coronet. They were both bowing to a smiling middle-aged man. Qin Xianer covered her small mouth in disbelief. She pointed at Suyu, then at herself. Suyu couldn't hide the loneliness in his eyes. "Yes, we are husband and wife." Qin Xianer let out a low cry. She couldn't accept this sudden reality, so she drank the third bottle immediately. Another scene appeared in her mind. Suyu was stepping on the ice, and he was taking her away in front of the eyes of all the people in the faction. This was because she was being forced to marry someone else. In the scene, Suyu was standing alone, facing the people of the faction whose cultivation was far higher than his. His eyes were filled with the resoluteness and solemnity of going forward, even if there were a myriad of enemies in front of him, and they were filled with the resoluteness and unyieldingness of welcoming death. As for Qin Xianer, she was being protected by Suyu's not-so-majestic body. It was as if even if the world collapsed and the world was about to be destroyed, Suyu would still stand in front of her and never retreat. Seeing this, something in the depths of Qin Xianer's soul seemed to be touched, and she couldn't help but feel sad. She couldn't help but shed tears. At this moment, the way she looked at Suyu changed completely. "Are you really my husband?" Suyu didn't speak, but handed her the fourth bottle. Qin Xianer drank it in one gulp. She was eager to know what happened between them after that. After the fourth bottle, another scene appeared. However, the scene stunned her, and her face was full of confusion. She and Suyu had completed their unfinished engagement in the Zhenlong continent, in front of the world and all living beings. However, a beautiful woman, who was so beautiful that even the sun seemed to lose its luster, had appeared. When she appeared, Suyu finally told Qin Xianer that the person he liked was that extremely beautiful woman. In the end, that woman killed her with a sword. "No!" Qin Xianer covered her mouth and kept retreating. Her eyes were filled with tears, and it was as if she could feel the pain she felt at that moment. She was first deceived by her husband, and then by her best friend, who seemed to be her best friend. "You are a liar." Qin Xianer stared at Suyu coldly. "I forgot you because you betrayed me, didn't you?" Her heart was suddenly filled with hatred. Suyu didn't deny it. He said, "I am indeed a liar, an incurable liar." The first person he deceived wasn't his enemy, but the woman he loved the most. "There is one last bottle," Suyu said. "You can drink it or not." Every moment that Qin Xianer recalled was the most important moment in her life, so her memory fragments would come back first. Feeling Qin Xianer's pain, Suyu felt that if Qin Xianer's memory recovered to the moment when he betrayed her, it would be an ending. At least Qin Xianer wouldn't have to worry about her missing memories. She only needed to know that he wasn't worth remembering. Although he was unwilling, Qin Xianer didn't mind. I don't want to believe you anymore. Qin Xianer's eyes were blurred by tears, and she couldn't stop thinking about Su Yu's betrayal, Xia Jingyu's face, and the darkest moment in her life. She even forgot about Hai Qin Xiao and the others, as she turned around and ran away. Su Yu looked at her disappearing figure. It was like the time when Qin Xianer fell into Su Yu's arms and disappeared. He raised his head to look at the empty sky, and he felt a great sense of desolation, which almost suffocated him. The pain in his chest was like it was being torn apart, and it spread throughout his heart. After a long time, he looked at the last bottle. If Qin Xianer consumed it, she would surely remember that Su Yu had given his life to Qin Xianer. Just as he had said, his love for her was, "If you want my life, I will immediately give it to you." Chapter 2374. Caressing the last bottle, Su Yu felt lonely, but he did not regret it. Sienna had regained her memory. What happened in the past could not be skipped. Su Yu did not want to escape that scene. That was indeed the time when he hurt Qin Xianer the most. He had always wanted to make up for it, but he had never succeeded, even though Qin Xianer had forgiven him and Xia Jingyu. However, he understood that the pain was like a nail hammered into a piece of wood. Even if the nail was removed one day, the scar would still be there, and it would not disappear. The reason why it cannot be seen was because it was hidden by the wood and did not want others to see it. Qin Xianer was a kind girl who constantly contributed. She did not want Su Yu to think that she cared about what happened in the past. She did not want Su Yu to feel guilty or sad, so she chose to hide it. However, the fourth bottle of spiritual liquid reminded her of that scene. It was obvious that she had never forgotten. She just wanted Su Yu to think that she had. Standing where he was, Su Yu felt empty, like a puppet who had lost his soul and future. He looked at the sky motionlessly. Then, the sky turned completely dark. There was no light. Under the dim starlight, Su Yu slowly took a step forward and walked away alone. Mr. Su, the divine flame female demoness, appeared from the darkness with a gentle expression. She sighed softly and said, "I don't know much about human emotions, but as the saying goes, sincerity can move metal and stone. Over time, that girl will understand your feelings." Su Yu's eyes dimmed, but he forced a smile. "Thank you." The divine flame demonic woman was slightly surprised. Why was Su Yu not surprised to know who she was? "Are you the divine flame demonic woman that my master mentioned?" Su Yu pulled himself together. Without Qin Xianer, he had other things to do. For example, destroying the holy mountain. He and Qin Xianer had fallen into this situation because of the holy mountain. As long as I, Su Yu, exist in the Tai realm, there will be no holy mountain. He swore in his heart. Hearing Su Yu's words, the divine flame demonic woman was nervous and expectant. "Your master mentioned me?" She really wanted to know what that senior had said about her. "Yes, my master said that although you're not very talented and will not amount to much, if you're willing to work hard and receive guidance, you will one day reach the peak of the martial path, comparable to the divine ancestors and the ancient gods." The divine flame demonic woman was pleasantly surprised. "Senior, did you really say that?" So you looked at her. "I never lie." In his heart, he added, "Except now." The divine flame demonic woman's heart was filled with excitement, and her heart was unprecedentedly open. She was even more determined to survive this calamity and continue fighting in the next epoch. She looked at Su Yu. To be honest, she was quite surprised. Firstly, he was surprised that Su Yu's cultivation was only at the half-step Daolord realm. A disciple taught by such a senior should be at the same level as Xian Daoist master. Secondly, he was shocked. Although Su Yu's cultivation was low, his abilities were so terrifying that it made people tremble. A mere half-step Dao Lord could suppress a mid-stage Dao Lord in the Fish Dragon realm. She had never heard of a Dao Lord who was able to fight a Dao Lord who was several levels above him. Therefore, she was sure that the person in front of her was that senior's disciple. Only such a senior could teach such a heaven-defying disciple. "Where is my master?" "Your master is out, but he told us to take care of you as much as possible if we meet." If young master, Su, doesn't want to stay in the manor, you can come with us to the inn and wait for your master's return. Suyu nodded. Let's go. The divine flame, demonic woman nodded. Suddenly, she looked at Hai Qing Xiao and the others and asked, what should we do with them? Suyu looked at them and could not help but think of Qin Xiener. After all, they were Qin Xiener's senior brothers. Suppressing them in the latrine was enough. He said, if they want to stay in there, then let them stay. After saying this, he turned and left. Hai Qing Xiao and the others felt as if they had been pardoned. They all crawled out of the latrine and fled back to the manor. When Suyu returned to the inn, he ran into Xie Xiao, who was wandering around in boredom. Xie Xiao had wanted to go to the manor to observe. Suddenly, she noticed Suyu's gloomy mood and asked, what's wrong? I'm fine. Suyu forced himself to calm down and smiled. Before we set off, I will go into seclusion. If there is nothing urgent, do not disturb me for the time being. Xie Xiao was suspicious. After Suyu left, she asked the divine flame, demonic woman. The divine flame, demonic woman, could tell that Xie Xiao and the senior's relationship was not ordinary. Moreover, many people knew about the manor, so she did not hide it. Knowing that Suyu and Qin Xiener had fallen out, Xie Xiao's heart skipped a beat. She thought that her actions that day had caused the two of them to be unhappy. Others might not know, but she knew that Qin Xiener was Suyu's wife. Thinking of this, she felt extremely guilty. After thinking for a long time, she bit her lip and went out alone, arriving at the manor where the Southern Sea civilization was. Looking at the tight defensive seals, Xie Xiao's eyes flashed. She took out an ancient talisman that was filled with demonic energy and pasted it on her forehead. A strange scene appeared. Her body disappeared into thin air. Not even her breath could be felt. Even more impressive was that she could ignore the seals that the South Pole Fairy Wang had personally set up and enter the manor. After searching for a while, she came to the house where Qin Xiener was. She could hear the incessant sobbing inside. Qin Xiener was lying on the table, looking at the lonely candle flame. Her heart reverberated with the pain of that memory, and she could not let it go for a long time. Suyu, since I am your wife, why did you betray me and fall in love with another woman? You heartless man. She clenched her fists. All of a sudden, she pulled down the bag hanging from her waist. The bag was filled with a dazzling array of items, but every one of them was exquisite. Even though she had lost her memory, Qin Xiener still had a habit that never changed. Every time she had something good, she liked to keep half of it in the small bag. Day after day, year after year, she did not understand where this habit came from, and for whom these things were kept. It was only when she drank the 4 bottles of spiritual liquid that she suddenly understood. Perhaps the bag was left for Suyu. She always wanted to leave the things that she liked to Suyu. But what did Suyu do to her? She threw the bag on the table and slapped it. If she hit it, it would definitely be smashed, and all the years of accumulation would go up in smoke. However, when her palm hit the air, she could not hit it. It was as if some kind of power was obstructing her. Her heart was filled with pain. Why is it like this? Ahem. Well, Miss Qin, I think you have misunderstood. There is nothing between me and your husband, Xie Xiao said awkwardly as she tore off the talisman on her forehead. Qin Xiener suddenly sensed the movement behind her, and she stabbed her spear behind her out of reflex. Xie Xiao reacted quickly. As the pathmaster of the fish dragon realm, she easily caught the spear. She could not help but spit. Do you have to be so cruel? Qin Xiener turned around. Seeing that it was her, she was immediately displeased. What did you get in? There was a great formation set up by the South Pole Fairy Wang outside, and ordinary people could not enter. Moreover, she cultivated the path of Azura, so she was very sensitive to auras. Even the eldest senior brother could not get close to her without her noticing. Don't worry about how I got in. I am here to tell you that you have misunderstood Suyu. Xie Xiao stared at her and said, Suyu has never done anything to me, nor has he done anything to other women. Qin Xiener had already obtained part of Suyu's memory, but it was very incomplete, and she did not know all of Suyu's past. Listening to the woman in front of her, it seemed like she had a lot of history with Suyu. She felt very uncomfortable, and she snorted. You speak as if you know him very well. Xiaoxiao thought for a moment, then said, I know him quite well, at least in terms of his character. For example, last time, there was a peerless beauty called Wuxin Iron Constable who was captured by him, but he did not touch her at all, and even let her go. Peerless beauty? Qin Xianer's heart clenched. Was she talking about the woman who killed her? Is that so? Qin Xianer looked incredulous. Xiaoxiao said, yes, he has many beautiful women around him, such as Bai Yun Hong Xian, Princess Qianyu, and so on, but Suyu has never done anything improper. There were other women? Qin Xianer clenched her fists. That playboy, he loves every woman he sees. The more she listened, the more uncomfortable she felt. She even had a vague sense of urgency, as if Suyu would leave with other women. Hey, I've said so much just to tell you that you're the only one in his heart. He's never been a playboy. Why can't you understand human language? Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes. Qin Xianer was furious. She glared at Xiaoxiao. What about you? What was the meaning of hugging his arm in broad daylight? Aren't you ashamed? Feeling wronged, Xiaoxiao argued. That's because we have a good relationship and are honest with each other. Why don't you just say that we are innocent? The more Qin Xianer spoke, the more jealous she felt. Who was Xiaoxiao? She was a pirate. When had she ever lowered herself to explain to someone and even tried to persuade them to make peace? However, Qin Xianer's whole body was full of thorns, and she wasn't easy to talk to. She was annoyed and thought, you can think whatever you want. Without you, Suyu wouldn't need another woman. Humph, I'll go back and advise him right now. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why should he have a one-sided crush on a flower? There's no need for him to be upset over a heartless woman like you. He was injured because of me. Qin Xianer's heart softened, and her anger dissipated by half. She should hate him, but she couldn't bring herself to hate him. However, hearing Xiaoxiao say that she wanted to persuade Suyu to find another woman, Qin Xianer was really annoyed. She scolded, Vixen, you've finally revealed your tale and said what you're thinking. Xiaoxiao pointed at her own nose angrily. Vixen me? Humph. You've long wanted to break us up so that you could take over, haven't you? Qin Xianer was like a vinegar jar. Xiaoxiao rolled up her sleeves, furious. I say, you really don't know what's good for you. In the past, anyone who dared to talk to me like this would have been beaten to death by me. Qin Xianer curled her lips. You want to fight? Sure, that's exactly what I want.